back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device. Anybody out there, feel free to comment and give us your opinion on whatever we're talking about or anything that we're not talking about.
Yeah, a much larger array of topics.
Get John's stuffing recipe.
Exactly how I make cranberry sauce.
Don't ask. It involves a Dremel. All good things in life do.
All right, buddy, welcome out to the log room. It is Wednesday, December 23rd. 2020, Jersey Johnny coming at you. And with me, as always, are Mr. RadioPete and Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello, guys.
He said hello, guys.
And gals.
And gals. Everybody.
And
how's everybody doing tonight?
It's, it's good. It's good. There's a holiday, I think, approaching.
Yeah. Under my tree is still empty.
Yes.
Which usually it doesn't fill up until the 24th, but at this point, there's usually a couple things under there. But I'm thinking going to be kind of scarce this season.
Well, I think a lot of it is definitely a little scarcer under mine as well. But today, before we even get to Christmas Eve tomorrow and Christmas Day on Friday, today is a holiday.
It is Festivus, my friends.
Yeah, here we go. Right there. Happy Festivus, everybody.
That's right. I find tinsel very distracting.
There was a Festivus poll in the
George, wrestle your father.
Did you see the cover right there? There's a Festivus poll going through the.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
Speaking of tinsel, years ago, we still have some family friends who live out in New Mexico, and we went out and visited them around Christmas time a couple times when I was a kid, and they would put the tinsel on the tree. They would put the vacuum cleaner hose into the exhaust and then dangle the tinsel in front of the vacuum cleaner and let it go and blow it onto the tree.
That's great.
Pretty ingenious.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Tinsel is is not fun.
No.
I find garland to be the slightly less annoying cousin of tinsel.
Still annoying, but slightly less.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Annoying nonetheless, but so
I just thought of something. Tinsel would be a great name if you were a stripper.
I'm sure it is.
Tinsel Jones. What do you do for a living?
That's tinsel.
Just tinsel. No last name.
No.
So are we going to wait till later in the podcast, though, to talk about the airing of the grievances? Or
maybe.
Yeah. Festivus is caught on. It's without a doubt my favorite Seinfeld episode of all time because it's also wrapped in with the bagel strike.
Yes.
Oh, I saw somebody
and the Two-Face, right?
I saw somebody posted today that Festivus is actually an ancient celebration. It's actually a real thing. I didn't look it up to see if it's true.
It's not.
It was not in fact invented by Seinfeld.
Well, it was invented by one of the writers or something.
Writers, yeah.
Whose father actually invented it.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not based on like some ancient pagan festival.
Yeah.
No, it's a completely humorous take on, pretty much what Frank Costanza says in the bagel shop.
Sure.
Yeah.
They did it in their family for years. They did it in their family for years, and then one of the writers was one of the sons, and he had mentioned it. He'd been talking about it. He mentioned it to Jerry, and Jerry's like, "We have to do this."
Yes.
So, that's where it came from.
It's also the episode with the Human Fund, which is great. If you can get away with that as Christmas presents, that's good.
I'm giving money instead of presents to the Human Fund.
The Human Fund.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of giving money for humans, football, the Giants. No. What do we? I mean, I know it's obvious with Colt McCoy starting this past Sunday. It's obvious.
I don't think Daniel Jones would have made much of a difference.
I don't think that's where I was.
Their offensive line is back to not being able to block. They have no movement. I don't know. They just seem dead on offense. The defense didn't play terribly horrible. They're the Giants. They're going to win 5 games this year.
They already did.
Yeah, that's what exactly. So,
it certainly makes the. I hesitate to use the word interesting, but it makes the NFC East a bit more interesting with the Cowboys winning and Philly and like everybody's still in the mix here.
It is literally still anybody's division. Any
one
of those four teams can win it.
The Cowboys look the best as far as recent play.
It's the most exciting division where everyone is 4 games under 500 in football.
Right.
This year.
Yeah. Exactly.
But there's something to be said for that. The question I wanted to ask you guys is with the fake field goals. Because I hear two schools of thought on this week, listening to the pros and the pundits. One is, well, you got Colt McCoy, so you're limited. So now's the time to kind of open the bag of funny trick plays, and you might as well give him a shot because he's Colt McCoy. The flip side of that is, no, you exactly want to do the opposite. You want to tailor the offense to what he does well or what he's capable of because he's limited, and don't have Dixon throwing a pass to the center to try and get in the end zone, run plays that Colt McCoy can run. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, is it time to open it up because it's Colt McCoy and what have you got to lose? Or do you be a little bit more, simplify the playbook and try and be a little bit more conservative and get the most out of your backup quarterback who, let's not forget, he beat Seattle.
And they went back to basics. They ran the ball. They controlled it. They had a balance between passing and running. They did just enough. They controlled the clock. They kept it out of Russell Wilson's hands.
Kept that out of Westbrook's
hands too. And they kicked field goals. Yeah. I mean, if there's there's one thing the Giants are pretty good at, it's kicking field goals.
Right. Yeah, well, it's 6 points and you still would have lost, but I mean, and there's no moral victories in football, whatever. But at least you would have had you get a better.
Would have been in the game for
longer. It would have been 6 extra points instead of nothing.
Look, the Giants had one significant win this year against Seattle, and everybody got really, really excited. Before that, they beat a couple teams that were pretty miserable, and they're a below average football team. Then it showed on Sunday. It didn't surprise me.
No, but they were improving. Their defense was getting better.
And I think their defense, like I said, I think their defense played fairly well. I just think their offense is very inconsistent, and unless they're playing a team that they can exploit, which has even less talent than they do, they're not gonna put points on the board at a very consistent pace. They just aren't.
I agree.
And certainly not without Daniel Jones.
But ironically, you talk about the fact that Gano is pretty much the lead point scorer in the team, and yeah, he is, and the field goals and everything else. But ironically, on that trick play, he was wide open.
Yeah,
he was wide open.
That would have been great if he was the only person to score a touchdown.
Listen, if you don't let him kick, he's never going to win the team MVP.
That's right.
And there's no one else who deserves it on this Giants team.
But could you imagine he kicks a bunch of field goals and scores the team's only touchdown?
I don't think you want the one person who is consistently scoring. Like kickers are like, you don't want to ever have them out of their element. You don't want them trying to make a tackle. And I don't really think you want them trying to catch touchdown passes.
No.
It's just let them do what they do best. Yeah. I'm an old school thought guy, though. It's like if every once in a while you go for it on 4th down. If not, you kick a field goal. You take the points. Yeah. And this Giants team, they should take points whenever they possibly can. And, it was one of those games.
Bit of a boo-boo from Joe Judge.
A little bit of a boo-boo. But, hey, Freddie Kitchens was calling the plays, right?
Yeah, how did that even happen?
Jason Garrett was in COVID. Yeah, he was in COVID protocol.
No, but I mean,
I guess Freddie Kitchens is next in line after
why was he even on the team? I mean, he was brutal last season.
They brought him in. He's the tight ends coach. He was. I mean, that was his moniker before he was an assistant coach and head coach last year in Cleveland. He was always a tight ends coach. So that's and he's been friends and coached before with Joe Judge. He's got that connection there, which is why they brought him in.
But why is that the line of succession? I guess is my question.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Is it maybe just because of his experience? I don't know. Who's the Giants quarterbacks coach and what's? I would think that would be the guy who you might want to call the plays.
You would think, especially he's the only one working with Colt McCoy at that point, so why not bring him in?
And he's a little bit. I would think he's a little bit more involved in the offense because the quarterback has to know what everybody's doing.
Or maybe the head coach should just step in and call the plays.
Well, that's the possibility too.
Yeah, but I don't think that's Judge's forte.
From what I heard, that was Judge's. From what I heard, that trick field goal was Judge's call. That one was Judge's call.
I mean, at this point, they should just come out and try all trick plays next game.
Yeah.
Just
onside kick, right?
I got to be honest.
Have 4 running backs in the backfield. Have none. Have
5 running backs.
I like when teams
5 linemen and the quarterback.
Just the center and the quarterback, and then everybody else is spread out. I mean, just go nuts. What do you have to lose?
Instead of the wishbone, run the rump.
That's right.
You put 4 guys in a slanted rectangle in the backfield, and nobody knows.
4 guys are on a burning garbage can, and you sing pro tunes.
You hand the ball off to the
put him on a
guy
float singing Donkey Shane going down the field.
Yeah, hand the ball off to the guy in the injury cart as he drives across behind the quarterback. Flip it to him. Give it a shot. What do you got to lose?
I have news for Giants fan, and I am one of them. This is a long. It's going to be a long couple of years before this team is.
We're further along than we were the last couple of years, but
you're right where you were
yet.
Last year.
Yeah, but I mean, there's better pieces in place.
I think so.
Not great, not like perfect. We're winning everything pieces in place, but there's better pieces in place.
Hey, and they're gonna have maybe the 10th, 9th, 11th pick in the draft. Hopefully they can get some offensive linemen and some.
Well, everybody's saying now all the pundits, all the Mel Kiper and everybody else, the pre-draft. I mean, they're doing the mock draft 6 months before the damn draft.
Yeah.
They're all saying that they're gonna take a wide receiver in the first round.
The Giants have historically been, in recent history, in the last 15, 20 years, have been really, really good at drafting receivers. So that doesn't.
It doesn't surprise me, but I think they have other needs, and they do have some receivers. And according to a few other people in the rumor mill, they might have a shot at getting one back that they let go a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that would. There's no way that could go wrong.
There's no way that could go wrong.
No,
not at all. No, not so.
But you could say that about any team that particular player might go to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're really where would, other than maybe the Chiefs or maybe the Patriots, anywhere else you go, well, that's obviously going to go wrong. But
you realize that, I mean, depending on how these next 2 games go, Cleveland could win the AFC North.
Yes, they could.
And
Cleveland is playing the kind of football that the Giants used to play when they were a winning team.
Yeah.
They're running the ball. They're scoring when they need to, and they're playing pretty good defense.
Yeah,
and they're controlling the clock.
Who do they play Week 17?
The Steelers.
The Steelers, which could be the divisional title game.
I mean, did we the last 2 weeks? Have we, especially this last game? Are we just watching Ben Roethlisberger deteriorate in front of our eyes? It seems like 5 weeks ago it was a different guy. I mean, that was maybe the worst game I've ever seen him play the other night.
Yeah, no, definitely, he was horrible.
And he's a Hall of Fame quarterback in my mind.
Well, I asked a couple weeks ago, is he starting to wear down? Is he going?
And a couple of weeks ago, I didn't think he was.
No, but you know what? They have no running game.
They don't.
And it appears that he cannot throw downfield. Now, maybe he's
out of sync with his receivers.
He was trying to shove every single pass into triple and quadruple coverage.
He was making
every single pass he threw was to more than 2 defenders.
He was making Brett Favre seem conservative.
Ridiculous.
I mean, he was just
even when he has a receiver that's open, they're not holding on to the ball consistently.
No.
So
I don't know what happened to Schuster the other night.
Opposing defenses can kind of sit back and wait for him to, force the ball downfield. There's only so many 8-yard passes you can throw.
What did he have? 2 interceptions right into the hands of somebody just sitting there.
He threw it right to them.
Coverage, just sitting there in the underneath area, and there's no player with the Steelers uniform on around that.
Yeah,
nothing.
And he's been throwing the ball how many times a game? 40+ times a game.
Yeah.
And coming back off coming off a major injury, and he's not young. So yeah, and listen. Also, I think you've got to blame some of this. It shouldn't be a total excuse, but you got to blame some of this on the NFL and the scheduling. The Steelers, and I hate them being a Cowboys fan, but they got screwed. 3 games in 13 days, and then a 4th game coming off a short rest, right in kind of the teeth of the difficult part of the second half of their schedule. They got. I mean, that's forced to take a half bye in week 4, I think it was, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, they just, again, it's not an excuse for everything, but you just can't put, and again, no training camp, all the caveats we put for every team. And then you're just running these guys through game after game. You're through 4 games in less than 20 days.
4 games in 18 days they played.
Yeah, in 18 days. Now, that's going to take its toll, especially on, how old is Roethlisberger? 38. So I think that has something to do with it, because you can't come all the way back, and then you don't get a chance to come all the way back. You don't have another break.
They won a couple close games against some decent teams and a couple good teams, but who were they playing as far as their out of division schedule this year?
NFC East.
Yeah.
And the NFC East early on, when those teams were not doing anything, it's so.
And you know what, though? They lost to Washington, and they almost lost to Dallas.
Yeah.
So,
I'm telling you, Dallas is still the best team in the NFC East. When they decide to show up, they're the best team in the NFC East. Now, that's not saying much. It's like saying, I'm the prettiest girl at the pie eating contest. But
who does Dallas play this week?
Oh, no.
Who does Dallas play this week? Dallas,
because we know who they play in Week 17. Now, I mean, that could be a division title.
Dallas plays the Eagles this week.
Yeah.
Okay, they might win that one.
Mm-hmm. And then they play Washington the following week. They have 2 division games the next 2 games.
I mean, Dallas could very easily win out. Washington's also another team that you just don't know. There's some weeks when they look halfway decent.
Dallas plays Washington plays the Eagles in Week 17. Dallas plays
the Giants.
Plays the Giants, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying that could be. That's as likely a division deciding game, I think, as any. At the they could both Giants and Dallas could both win or both lose. So
I mean, if history is any determination, the Giants and Dallas almost always split.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if one team's a Super Bowl champion and the other
one team is
right.
Going 1-15. The one team they're winning this guy.
They just always
split. John Donovan said, even when Barkley comes back, they need mute players on offense. And and then he said they need more players on offense, not mute. But I like the mute players.
I don't mind the mute. Bavaro would mute.
If you're going to bring back a certain wide receiver, then you might like him to be mute.
Oh, I would love it. If that receiver comes back, he better damn well be mute.
So that could be a good thing there.
Exactly. And then Dave from the Beer Show said, happy Festivus to 3 guys who have no issues airing grievances. So,
that's true.
But what more can you ask from 2 Giants fans and a Jet fan? So many grievances.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Surprised this podcast isn't brought to you by, Prozac and...
John Donovan said, "If only."
Yeah, it should be marijuana, maybe.
Yes,
brought to you by a nice fat joint.
Yeah. This podcast has been brought to you by CBD oil.
That's CBD oil is definitely not the right. I mean, CBD oil is if you're like Kansas City,
there it is, right there.
Yeah. That doesn't help with being a Giants or Jets fan.
Well, no, you got to be hitting the pipe while you're the bowl while you're
it's not
taking the CBD oil. So.
No, it's not. It's not THC. It just makes you a little sleepy.
There you go, THC oil. There you
go. That's right. That's what you really need.
This podcast is brought to you by THC.
THC, CBD.
Vitamin THC. There you
go. So, all right. So, listen, the rest of the games, I think, were fairly predictable, save one. I mean, the Bucks beat the Falcons as they should, although not by a lot. And
yeah, but then there was the one game in Los Angeles.
Oh, I don't think I saw that. Well,
you didn't see that one?
I did like the Chargers beating the Raiders, though.
The Chargers beat the Raiders.
I don't know. Chargers
somebody predicted that.
Yeah,
somebody did predict
Somebody's getting closer.
Somebody's getting closer at the one. That was a good prediction too.
But yeah, the big upset and perhaps the number one grievance for any Jet fan
Is
is
that
their performance this week against those
you
LA
had
Rams.
Trevor Lawrence sitting underneath your Christmas tree,
And
instead you're going to get
Instead, you're going to get an offensive lineman.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to happen against New England, and
Right.
they certainly have kind of fallen by the wayside. They're certainly not. So I figured it was going to be Week 17, and that would be the ultimate heartbreak. This is pretty close to that, but you kind of. I mean, if you're a true, honest, longtime Jet fan, you had to figure in your heart of hearts this was not going to happen for them because
they're the Jets. They're the Jets.
So,
and here's a grievance. It also screwed us up because we had that beautiful sounder that you and your son made.
Yeah.
So
we got 3 weeks out of it, right?
We got 3 weeks out of it. And now this is the new and improved sounder because they won. Or maybe it's not.
Now let me ask you this.
Technical difficulties. Actually, I like that better.
Yeah, that's really all it deserves is more.
If they win
here
games and the Bengals have 2 wins, who wins that tie? Because the Bengals have a tie, so the Jets would still have the second.
That's
pick.
a half a game better. So So here's the sounder.
Sounds about right.
Pretty much.
Yeah, the ending is the best. The ending / beginning is the best part. Yeah, 16 Orf Quest. I'm not going to try and quest backwards.
I mean, that's so sad. It's so 2020 for the Jets to just come on.
And against the Rams, who I think they're a 10 win team.
The Rams, the Rams, they're 9-win. They would have been a 10-win team. I mean, they were right there for the division lead if they they won the damn game.
There were some questions about them early on. They were a bit inconsistent, but the last several weeks, barring this latest debacle for them, I thought they felt like they were really coming on and proving that they were, for real and going to take a shot at a run in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Listen, maybe a stumble for them, maybe playing down, maybe they were thinking we don't, it's the Jets, but gugh.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I don't know what else to say.
What else is there to say other than
Jacksonville might still beat somebody. I don't know.
Why would they, though? I mean, it's not like they want to win a game because they don't want to go winless. They already won a game. So,
and look, there's probably not.
What's another win going to do for them?
Let's be honest. There's probably not a better team for Trevor Lawrence than Jacksonville. I mean, it just sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, look, they've got the Bears.
He grew up in Tennessee.
Right?
He goes to school in South Carolina. Jacksonville's right there. Why would you? Yeah,
they've got the Bears next week, which is a winnable game for them. Depending on which Bears team shows up.
The Bears are looking good again now that
Bears,
he's back.
Yeah. So it could be the halfway decent Bears, or it could be the crappy Bears.
Right.
And then let me see who they have week 17 here.
Week 17, the Jaguars have
the Colts.
The Colts,
so they're probably not going to win that one because the Colts are 10-4 right now.
They're not going to win either of them.
They're probably not going to win
because they're not as dumb as the Jets. Now that they have the first pick, they're not going to. I mean, they're not going to make it obvious.
My point was, if it's the lousy Chicago team that shows up, I mean, I find it impossible to believe that any team is going to intentionally throw the game. No. I mean, there might be decisions here or there, kick a field goal instead of go for start
a third string running back.
Well, you might
try out the backup offensive line.
You might give some of the guys that are off the special team squad a couple
give them a nod at tight end. Give the gunner a nod at tight end.
They're not going to go out and not try and win the game. And if the Bears come out and play lousy, then they could win.
Now, what would be funny is if the Jags and the Jets played in Week 17. And then whoever the winner of that game gets Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, I think
each quarterback would throw an interception every time they get the ball.
They would just never snap it. There would just be continuous delay.
I think it would be like 1, 2, 3. I forfeit. He said it first.
He said it first.
You forfeit first, so you lose. Yeah. So
Right, call it in the air. Heads or tails? Mars.
Well, but now, all right. So now let's look at what we know is going to happen, which is the Jets are not going to get Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
And so now there's a couple things that they need to do, and some of them I think they're capable of doing, and some of them probably not so much because they don't have a good history. Number one is they need to embrace Sam Darnold. What I've seen from him the last couple of weeks, I don't think he's broken. Right? Is Sam Darnold broken in year 3? No, he's not.
He's not.
I think he's the guy's a hell of a competitor.
He needs somebody. He needs somebody better to be calling better plays and coaching better.
Right. So they need to embrace him. I think the team's going to play for him. He's a competitor. I think he's still got skills and he can still be good. They're capable of doing that. They need to bring in the right coach. Okay, that's where it gets difficult because they're the Jets and they often make that mistake. And they've got to decide about, are they going to let I always call him Hugh Douglas, the GM.
Joe Douglas.
Sorry.
Kirk Douglas.
Anybody named Douglas on the Jets, I only think of Hugh. Are they Joe Douglas going to be the guy to bring in the coach? How much are the idiot Johnson father-son team or the sons or whoever going to be involved? Are they going to let somebody who knows football run things? That's something that we have to see if they can do. And then they've got to figure out what they're going to do with that number 2 pick. And that's also a minefield for the Jets, generally speaking. They don't have a history of making terrific decisions with high picks. Although, certainly I think the way to go there might be to trade and fill in some of the holes. So, listen, I feel better with Sam Darnold as my quarterback and a decent coach moving forward than I would say, no offense, with Daniel Jones.
I was just going to say I got to agree with you at this particular point. The way Jones looked in a lot of games this year, I would rather have Sam Darnold on the team than Daniel Jones.
So they look. At least there's.
I mean, not by a far measure, but
no, not by a lot.
Incrementally,
maybe. Well, I don't know. Maybe a little bit more potential.
Right.
I wouldn't be.
He's also a year further into his career too, so he's got a little bit more behind him. So.
And look, you've got a couple years left on Darnold's rookie contract.
Yep.
So probably next year is not going to be the next year when you make huge leaps and bounds.
So you get the second pick next year and maybe a chance to get the first pick again.
Maybe, but you should be better. And look, I got no real issues with. I think they've got enough guys with enough potential in their receiving core. You got to bring somebody in to run the ball besides Frank Gore.
Perryman, Mims,
they
all look good.
Yeah, they're all out there and they're all healthy, and Darnold's developing some chemistry. So at least, again, assuming that Jacksonville doesn't win another game, then at least you know what's going to happen. You're not going to get Lawrence. And so you're going to, you're either going to trade it or they'll probably draft Chase Young, which, he could end up being a great player, but I think you get more by trading the pick. But at least they'll sort of know what's going on and they can have a plan, and then we'll just see how badly they screw it up.
Right. Yeah, that's it. And I think that overall, if they do wind up with the second pick, it would behoove them much better to trade it for other picks and other things. Get a windfall for that number 2 pick.
Yeah, you've got who's the other quarterback that everybody's talking about? I forget his name.
What are they going to do from Ohio State?
Yeah. So there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback.
Yeah,
and there's probably
Justin Fields, and the Jets might take Justin Fields.
Yeah,
they might, but there's probably also a lot of teams that are feeling they are 1 or 2 players away from the next level, and whether
one
it's
of them
a wide
being a
receiver
quarterback
or whether it's a guy like Chase Young, whether it's a quarterback or it's another position receiver, a defensive player, and they might be looking to get to number 2 to where so that they can get their guy that they feel they need to make them more relevant, at least within their division.
John Donovan agrees. Trade down and get talent.
Yeah, I agree. Number 2, trade down. You got holes to fill. So,
yeah, I agree. Definitely, that's what they should do. But they probably won't because
they're the Jets.
They're the Jets.
Well, trading down and getting talent makes sense if there's people out there that are available. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that my take on the Jets is, Sam Darnold, I think, is you got to give him, I think, a little bit of a chance, but you can still draft Justin Fields and have two quarterbacks and then have an option when Darnold's contract is up and see where things happen.
That's true, because you'll have him for 5 years on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
So if Darnold's contract is up, if he's playing lights out, trade Justin Fields.
Yeah, but then you're going to take the number 2 pick in the draft and have him sit on your bench for a couple of years and then trade it away.
That would be a Jet thing to do, though.
Or give him a chance to get the starting job.
This is
assumedly he would have a chance to get the starting job. He might get it
if he plays well enough and better than Sam Darnold. Then he's going to wind up being that person. They're going to trade Darnold, and they're going to tag Darnold and trade him, or trade him before his 5th year option comes up, and get something back for that. And then have Fields, which would also be a Jet thing to do.
I mean, Penei Sewell, or however you say his name, the offensive tackle who's with Oregon. I mean, he's projected to go, 3rd or 4th in the draft. Why not? I mean, the Jets could certainly use an offensive tackle.
They certainly could. I wouldn't have a problem with, if they're going to keep the pick with making a move like that. Yeah. Listen, I think it's really unfair the way Sam Darnold has been treated by the Jets. Yeah. He has had no consistency in coach, offensive scheme. It's like 4 guys now in 3 years. And you got to give him some shot. And look, there was a reason that he was thought by a lot of people before the draft. When
he was a consensus.
He was a consensus, most NFL ready. He's the guy. And you look at listen. Whether it was a mistake or not, he should have taken Jackson or should have taken whoever. You can't know that really till their careers are over.
Yeah,
you can't look at 1 or 2 or even 3 years and go.
And maybe not even better. Maybe not even when their career is over, because some guys just don't get a chance to play on a team that is the best, has the best talents around them to make them excel.
Right.
Yeah.
And
but certainly Sam Darnold has not had any opportunity to do that, and I'd rather see them, have him say he's our guy, and we'll bring in somebody better than David Fales as a backup. You want to bring in the veteran, you want to bring in the
His name is David.
No, the guy they had last year.
I thought it was Epic.
When I watched Darnold play, I don't really have I don't have a hatred of this team that I'm going to mention like the Jets fans do, but I could see Darnold turning into a pretty darn good quarterback playing for the Patriots.
Yeah,
he just seems like a Patriots quarterback. I don't know why. He just does.
I could easily see that happening. And every year, here comes Darnold into MetLife, and the Patriots kick the crap out of the Jets.
Right. Yeah. Right.
No matter how well the Jets are playing and how poorly the Patriots are playing, that happens.
I'd rather see them try and develop him.
Yeah.
But again, you got to get the coach right, and that's going to be a stumbling block.
There's not a lot of great coaches out there these days. There seems like there's a lot of pretty bad coaches.
Yeah.
There's a lot of retreads who don't deserve any more chances, as far as I'm concerned.
I think the Jets should go after what's his name, who's Kansas City's
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah.
I
think that's hands down where they have to look. Right there, they have to look.
Offensive guy. I can picture him doing well with the Jets, and he'd change things around.
Yeah, and I'm usually not a fan of first time coaches, but I think in his case, I think he has more potential than many others.
Well, he's been coaching a long time.
Yeah, right.
And he's. I think the first time coaches that come out of the some of the coaching trees of successful coaches, that's a better bet.
Yeah.
Right.
I've also heard a couple of times out there that the Jim Harbaugh name gets dangled out there.
Yeah, pass.
A little bit.
Pass. And as far as Bieniemy, if you want a guy, talk about learning at the feet of a successful coach, there's not a whole lot of names that you might put ahead of Andy Reid, at least in my book.
We talk about Andy Reid that way now. I mean, and Patrick Mahomes is a really nice gift to Andy Reid. Andy Reid's a very good coach. Don't get me wrong, and he had some years where he just couldn't catch a break with very good teams, and he coached them very well. Mm-hmm. But Andy Reid is a little bit like Pat Riley in the sense that he's got a ton of talent,
Yeah.
Just a ton. Like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Phil Jackson was a good coach too, and he didn't have as much talent as, although he had the best player in the history of basketball. But so yeah, the thing that impresses me about Andy Reid, even maybe more so than Belichick right now, is that he seems to have gotten more adaptable as he's gotten older, and he seems to be ahead of the curve with where the league is going and how he's coaching, and that's amazing for a guy his age.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't consider, his years in Philly when they couldn't win the big one or couldn't get. I consider those, those are still successes in my book.
Of course.
The same way the Bills, get
Mark Levy was a really good coach. I mean, when you go to 4 straight Super Bowls, he just got out coached in a couple Super Bowls
and went up against a couple of you could say the
yeah.
Bills were a juggernaut.
He went up against Bill Parcells, Joe Gibbs, and Jimmy Johnson twice.
Well, and I would say in 90, he went up against Parcells and Belichick. Maybe with the greatest defensive plan ever assembled for a Super Bowl.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and it was, and it definitely was that defensive plan that won the Super Bowl. That's
had Levy realized that, hey, maybe we should be running the ball a little bit more and using Thurman Thomas. If he just did that 2 minutes earlier in the game, the Giants don't win that Super Bowl.
No,
because once they started doing that, he was destroying them, and they almost won. So it
also helped that the Giants ate up most of the third quarter on one drive coming out of halftime too.
Right.
So, and that took a lot of time out of the hands of the Bills. So but.
Bottom line, plenty of ways for the Jets to screw up still.
Plenty of ways for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Jets and Giants. It's just okay.
Jets and Giants, Giants and Jets. It's the same.
Speaking of New York teams, we'll shift gears a little bit here, just quickly. Where does Buffalo rank in the AFC? Are they the second best team in the AFC now?
I think at this point they're probably you're probably looking at them as being the second best.
I think they have to be.
The Pittsburgh is definitely falling out of favor with that.
It's not Pittsburgh. I don't think there's anybody even a close third.
Browns they're playing pretty good football right now.
Did the Browns and Bills play this year?
I think they did. Yeah, they did, and the Bills won, I think.
Yeah.
Or did they? Hold on, I'll find out.
Well, that's a good question.
We'll take a look.
Get our crack team of statisticians on
our crack statisticians, right?
Alexa. And I see the Browns and Bills game from
Browns, Bills.
Who would have thought back in the day you'd be really curious about a Browns-Bills game?
Yeah, no.
Well, probably there would be some interesting bets in Vegas for some of those games.
The Browns did not play the Bills.
No, they beat them last year, 1916.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they have not played this year, so
they did not play. No,
they very well could.
Yeah, they could in the playoffs. But
for whatever reason, Cleveland every week is looking more and more like a team that you can trust in clutch situations. But I still have just a little bit more faith in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, I do too.
But I would agree.
I still say that. Yeah, you're right on calling that. I think Buffalo is definitely the number 2 team. I still say, and I said it before week 1, and I say it now. I still say that the Super Bowl is still going to be Green Bay and Kansas City. I mean, easy to pick, but I think that's where it's still heading. I'm not. It's not like I'm going on a limb saying that, but I just think it's where it's headed. Green Bay is doing, everything to win. I mean, they played the Panthers the other night, and the Panthers were competitive in the game, and the Panthers are 4-10. Aaron Rodgers threw for 143 yards. Aaron Jones rushed for more yards than Aaron Rodgers threw for. But they won the game, and that's the bottom line. They're doing what they need to do to win the game. Through the air wasn't going to happen. On the ground did. So, but
I think things are shaping up to be pretty interesting in the playoffs.
Yeah, it should be a fun playoff
because you've got a bunch of teams. Look, you got the Bucks. They're a good team, but they're kind of a question mark. The Dolphins get hot. How can they hang with some teams that you wouldn't think that they can beat? Right. The Browns seem to be getting more consistent week to week.
The AFC is going to be interesting.
Yeah, very, very. And
I think in the NFC, everybody's looking forward to see maybe potentially, Bucks versus Packers and a Rodgers Brady matchup, somewhere along the line in the playoffs.
Well, depending I was going to say, depending on where everybody falls in, it's probably going to be, Packers and Saints or Packers and Bucks.
Yeah, you got to wonder we got to see what the Saints are going to do over the next couple of weeks and how
they're so unpredictable.
Well, how healthy is Drew Brees?
I think Daniel Jones was more healthy last week.
11 ribs they said he broke at that.
I think
five.
I think he's just rusty. Yeah.
5 ribs and a collapsed lung was. I mean, unless 6 more were broken and they didn't know it.
I'm pretty sure I heard 11, but it might have been an erroneous report.
When it first happened, I heard 5 and a collapsed lung. 5 ribs and a collapsed lung.
Well, either way, like 1 broken rib.
5 broken ribs and 1 collapsed lung.
There you go.
Right. That's football.
That's football, pretty much. Should we do some picks?
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, and I got to pull up.
You pull it up, and I'll play this. Beaten by the coin.
Beaten by the coin.
I'm sure I'll lose to the coin.
No one wants to be beaten by the coin.
Well, it looks like no one's going to lose to the coin this season. It would take a monumental effort. It would take a Jets-esque effort in picking to lose to the coin.
Don't
throw it away. But,
No. Listen, the interesting race here is between Harry and I for second place. Although, listen, we've got, by my count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games to pick this week.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
And 2 of them are good.
Yeah.
So
and even that, 8 games to pick, and 2 of them are good.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a chance that John could have the worst week he's ever had, and
it could be.
Harry and I could get within maybe 5 games instead of 8. But quick recap from last week: Jersey Johnny goes 3-3. Harry, compliments of the Chargers, goes 4-2. Yours truly 3-3. And the coin goes 2-4, and they're out of it. They're 3 games under 500. So 48-15 for Jersey. Harry at 40-23. I'm 41-22, and that's where the race is. So
there you
go. You're calling everything first this week, Harry. I'm just gonna.
I'm not.
Now, listen, we got 8 games. Like I said, 8 games. So that could be fun. So let's get right to it, and we'll start with Minnesota visiting New Orleans.
Minnesota visiting New Orleans on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
I want to point one thing out really quick. It won't take 2 seconds. Once that game happens this Friday on Christmas Day, this year, 2020, the regular season, there will be a regular season game have been played on every single day of the week.
Well, there's 8. We learned earlier when we were off the air that there's 8 days in the week.
There is 8 days, yeah. Tuesday and a half.
There's a day between Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, which game was played on Tuesday and a half?
That's right.
Yeah, this is true.
That was almost the Steelers-Ravens game.
Almost the Steelers-Ravens.
Then they moved it to Wednesday, 8 a.m., and then eventually into the afternoon. So.
Exactly.
Every week in 2020 is a leap week.
The question for me is, what happened to Minnesota? I know they didn't look good. They got Cook back, and then they looked pretty good, and now they've sort of
Cook.
5-8 or something like that.
I think Cook has to get his stove looked at a little bit so he can cook a little bit better. He was lights out, and then all of a sudden, the last few games, he's just not what he was. I think he got hurt in that one game, and not enough to be put on the IR, but.
Maybe not his usual self.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, this is not necessarily a shoe-in for New Orleans. Like I said, we need to see what Drew Brees is capable of, and
I think,
assuming he's going to get the start. I haven't heard that he's.
We'll assume he's going to get the start, but
yeah.
I mean, it's not like they were completely out of that game.
No, they certainly didn't get blown out.
Right.
Well, I mean, talking about getting Cook involved, I think the Saints need to lean on Alvin Kamara and just,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that's their gold right there. I'm going to take the Saints.
I am too.
I'm going to take the Saints.
Yeah, I think the Saints have to win this game to kind of sort of stay where they're at, and Minnesota's so unpredictable, but I don't see them going into New Orleans and winning this game.
No.
So,
all right, let's see what Mr. Washington has to say. He picks tails. So he likes Minnesota.
He likes Minnesota.
Just digging.
He wants to keep digging the hole.
Deeper. Yeah.
So.
Tampa Bay at Detroit.
All right.
Anybody want to take them Lions in an upset?
This would be a game, knowing how the season's going, where the Lions would win. But I want Tampa Bay to hone in and get on a little bit of a streak here.
Yeah. And
it just seems like they need to be woken up sometimes.
And I think that wake up call came in like the third quarter of this past weekend. So
yeah, it's. I think Tampa Bay is should win this game, but I don't have as much faith as I had in them 5-6 weeks ago.
I don't either. Minnesota, Detroit could very easily win this game. Maybe not very easily, but it's a possibility Detroit could win this game. I mean, they're not a bad team. They're just not a good team. And if the Bucks show up in Detroit like they showed up in Atlanta, things could happen. But I'm going with Tampa Bay.
I don't know. I'm tempted to take Detroit. I mean, they're not very good, but has the question been answered? Is Tom Brady not done necessarily, but
no,
is he really starting to backslide enough that it's going to affect the team?
I don't think so.
Maybe not that much.
No,
I got to take.
Still a top 10 quarterback in this league.
Yeah, I got to take.
There's 16 quarterbacks I wouldn't take over Tom Brady.
Yeah,
yeah.
All right, coin says heads, so that's the home team. So
that's
like
the Lions.
And what's interesting about Tampa Bay is if Brady and Antonio Brown start to get in sync, that could solve some trouble. That's a pretty nice duo that he's got lined up now.
Yeah, that could put them back into they could easily go to the Super Bowl discussion.
I think they're doing that video too, with Brady and Antonio Brown with In Sync.
B&B?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
As long as they get in sync on the field.
Next.
All right. San Francisco and Arizona. Yeah. Who cares? Well, Arizona cares because they're still in the hunt for the division title.
4 or 5 weeks ago, this would have been an interesting matchup. Maybe 7 weeks ago, but San Francisco just continues to get more and more decimated with injuries, and they just seem like they've kind of given up on this year.
Yeah, I mean,
I was watching. Then?
Yeah. I was watching Richard Sherman, and he didn't even look like he cared to be playing the game.
No,
I'm sure he doesn't. Didn't exactly work out the way he wanted.
I'm going Arizona. So.
I'm tempted to take San Francisco.
Tempted by a pick of another.
But I like it.
Tempted if it doesn't make sense.
All right,
I'm
going to let the coin be the outlier as they have been so far. I'm going to go with Arizona as well. And the coin says tails. That's unbelievable.
Arizona.
So they like San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah. Tails is the away team. All right. This could be an interesting game. Miami at Las Vegas. And do the Raiders have one more? We're the good Raiders up and coming game in them.
Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are actually moving in the right direction. What makes me confident with the Dolphins is I don't really think it really matters much who's at quarterback. I mean, Tua is looking better, but God forbid something happens and he gets hurt. I feel confident with this team. I like this Dolphin team is. They're gonna be an interesting team next year, and I just think the Raiders are. They just have not looked good.
So, yeah, were they ever really as good as a couple of games that they played? Because it really was only a couple of games.
Yeah.
This is not a team that was expected to be particularly good this year. And
they seem like they have a quarterback controversy going on now. They just seem a mess. So.
Well, can Carr be good, or is he going to be Carr?
Right.
All right. So nobody wants to take Vegas?
No.
Other than maybe the coin.
Miami.
All right. Get Dolphins. Now they're going to be good. Oops. Hang on. Now they're going to be good, and that'll ruin the Jets. Won't even get second. Tails. Miami. There we go.
There you go.
Coin coming to its senses.
Finally.
Cleveland and the Jets. I'll just put everybody down for Cleveland.
That would be correct.
Well, maybe the Jets go on a heater. No, Cleveland wins. Cleveland rocks.
Cleveland rocks.
Coin says tails, likes Cleveland as well.
There
All
you go.
right.
Even the coins, like, fuck that.
Yeah.
That ain't happening 2 weeks in a row.
I'm too big.
Everybody gets lucky at the bar one night a year.
Yeah. All right. I'll let you guys pick the Giants at them pesky Ravens.
I was going to say, why are you going to let us pick the Giants?
Well, I'll let you pick first.
The Ravens are winning this game.
Yeah, the Ravens are just another team that I just can't understand. But no, the Giants aren't winning another game this year. The Ravens win.
Yeah, I agree. I think. Well, we don't know what who's going to start for the Giants yet, right? So might not be Daniel. If it's if
does it matter?
How healthy does Daniel Jones have to be to start this game?
I don't know.
80%.
Scott Brunner.
Daniel Jones has to be so healthy that he turns into Steve Young for the Giants to have a chance.
Matt Kavanaugh is starting.
All right. Coin says heads. So now we're all in agreement. I think the coin realized the error of its ways.
There you go.
Tennessee at Green Bay. This is one of the good games.
This is a really good game.
This is a really good game, yeah.
This is a big test. Is this a bigger test for Green Bay or for Tennessee? I think it's a bigger test.
It's a big test for both, but I think it's a bigger test for Green Bay.
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger test for Tennessee.
No, I think it's a bigger. I think it's a big test for both. I think it's a bigger test for Green Bay.
All right. I'm going to take the Titans.
Who did you take, Jim?
I haven't taken anybody yet.
Okay.
Silence.
I'm pondering a few things here, so go ahead when you're ready to make it.
I'm going to take Tennessee, so we may end up tied after this week.
There you go. I'm going to take Green Bay. I think that the Titans are a fantastic team. I just think, like I said before, I think Green Bay is doing just what they need to win each game. So I'm taking Green Bay.
And they seem to me they're a team that knows how to win a little bit better. That sounds kind of maybe idiotic, but
right.
You know. Although listen, Tennessee is kind of on a mission after the way things ended last year. So.
I mean, you could put Derrick Henry on any team, and I think they have a chance.
I mean, it's a bad game for Tennessee if Derrick Henry doesn't run for at least 180 yards.
I'm going to take the Packers, but my toes aren't tingling. This is a game that the Tennessee could very easily win. I think this is really a coin toss on this game. I don't think if the Packers do win, I don't think they dominate this game, and I think it's going to be close.
I agree. I think it'll be a good game no matter who wins.
It's the best game of the that we're picking. So
coin says tails.
Going with you.
There we go. I don't know if that's a good sign or not. And finally, them Buffalo Bills at the oh gosh, I'm so broken up because they're faltering New England Patriots. This might be the game. I don't know. I was going to say maybe the Patriots sneak this one out, but no. I think Buffalo's on a mission too.
Buffalo's on a mission. They're
winning. I mean, the Patriots' body language this past week just sort of seemed like it. I've never seen a Patriots team like that in a long, long time.
No,
it was certainly not in the Belichick era, and so yeah. I mean, and this is a game that if the Bills do lose, it would be a really big slide back. This is a game that a team like the Bills, who we're saying is the second best team in the AFC, maybe one second or third best team in the NFL, should win. And if they don't, then maybe they're not as good as we think they are. So I think they'll win.
Yeah.
All right. Coin flip says heads. So they like the Pats.
Interesting.
Well, there you go. So we have a couple of differences, one or two. Well, a lot of differences with the coin. And I think me taking Tennessee. Other than that, we're all in complete agreement. So there's a chance here. That was a chance here.
I felt stronger in my gut with Tennessee on that, but there's just something. I think the Packers are just starting to play enough good football to win this game. They should win this game.
I would say probably my pick of Tennessee is almost a coin flip too.
Right.
I think they're a little hungrier, and I think Green Bay has shown a penchant for kind of sleeping on the job sometimes.
I'm closer to being 50-50 on this than I have been on most games that I picked the Packers in. But yeah.
I just think it's going to be a close game, and I'll take Aaron Rodgers in a close game over what Tennessee's offering up.
Probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to be right.
Agreed. Well, there you go.
Hard to go wrong with Aaron Rodgers. There you go. There's our 28 picks for this week.
There are 28 picks for the 16 games of this week.
That's right.
So there you go. All right. Shall we get into some top 10 action this week?
We certainly should.
All
Yeah.
right. And bear with us, folks, because we haven't actually decided who's going to do what yet, but I have a list here.
I don't want to go first.
Well, you're going first.
Now I got to look.
Who's going second?
I'll go second.
Okay.
So you can go third. And it's the same order all the way through. Well, actually, no, we might switch it up. So.
All right. Who am I? All right. Never mind. Professional we are.
Professional we are, yes. So we're doing top 10 defensive backs of all time this week, folks. Top 10 defensive backs. We had a tie. We actually had a tie for 6, 9, and 10, but we massaged a couple things around, and we weren't going to give you a 13-player top 10 list, so we're giving you an 11. We just did a tie.
Because your guys' picks were so horrible.
So, but yeah, so that's what we're doing. Number 10B. Radio Pete's going to start us off. Why don't you start us off with 10B?
I don't know. Who's 10P?
That would be Herb.
Oh, okay, good. I got him pulled up here.
I thought it was Cannonball.
Herb Adderley. I don't know his middle name, and I don't care. Played with Green Bay and Dallas. 5 times a Pro Bowler. 4-time a first-team All-Pro. 3-time NFL champion. 61, 62, and 65 with the Packers. Super Bowls 1 and 2 with the Packers, and 6 with the Cowboys. That's a lot of winning. 48 INTs and 7 defensive touchdowns in his career into the Hall of Fame in 1980. A big guy, a physical player. Listen, played in a kind of a different era when things could get a little bit more physical in the secondary. Certainly used that to his advantage. But 6 world championships, again, it wasn't all because of him, but he would get in anybody's face, and you really had to either be really, really fast or have a lot of grease on your jersey, or really big and strong to kind of get past him. He had a physical edge over most of the guys that he went up against. So Herb Adderley, number 10B.
10B. All right. I will take number 10A. Number 10A would be Mr. Charles Woodson. Mr. Charles Woodson. Charles Cameron Woodson. In case you were wondering. You knew I was going to tell you his middle name. He was drafted in the first round, pick number 4 in the 98 draft by the Oakland Raiders. Played for 8 seasons on the Raiders and played for another 7 on the Packers. Then went back to the Raiders for a couple of years. So I bounced around. He was a Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 45 there with the Packers. 4-time first-team All-Pro, 4-time second-team All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler. Defensive Player of the Year in 2009, Defensive Rookie of the Year in 98, 2-time NFL interceptions leader in 2009 and 2011. Member of the 2000s All-Decade Team, won the Art Rooney Award. Just crazy. And he's not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, folks. He is in the College Football Hall of Fame, but he's not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But just an amazing player. I mean, he's a Raiders and a Packers legend. Not many times does one player that plays for more than one team become a legend on both teams, but this guy is. He's the only player in NFL history with at least 60 interceptions and 20 sacks. Whatchamacallit? So, as is a retirement in 2015. So, but I don't think anybody's done it since, though. But he did it as of his retirement in 2015. He was that. So, anyway, there you go. Number 10, Charles Woodson. Mr. Harry Lug Nutz, could you bring us to number 9?
Number 9 is Mr. Jack Tatum, probably best known for his time with the Oakland Raiders, played 1 year with the Houston Oilers towards the end of his career. This guy his nickname was the Assassin. He didn't have as long as a career as I thought he did. It seemed like he was around, for a while there, but he was probably the hardest hitting safety, certainly of that time, and maybe the hardest hitting safety, with the exception of Ronnie Lott, to ever play the game. He was just an incredibly aggressive player who just blew the heads off wide receivers and tight ends. From Passaic, New Jersey, he was a Super Bowl champion with the Raiders, 3-time Pro Bowler. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame either, but he just goes down as one of those guys who has some really incredible hits that would not be allowed today in today's game. I mean, I think in the Super Bowl, he literally knocked the helmet off a Vikings receiver, which is, one of the most famous hits in the history of the Super Bowl. Yeah. So Jack Tatum, just the assassin. I think that says it all right there.
Right there. Absolutely. There you go. Number 9, Jack Tatum. Why don't you bring us to number 8 there, Mr. Radio Pete?
Number 8 is it's the man with his own island.
There you go.
There you go. One of my favorite Jets, probably one of.
He was a great Patriots too.
You had to. Don't harsh my mellow, man. It's Darrelle Revis.
Darrelle Revis Island.
Of Revis Island, from the Jets. A couple of stints with the Jets, 07 to 2012, and then 15 and 16. He was with Tampa Bay in 2013 and New England in 2014, and then the Chiefs in 2017. 4 times a first-team All-Pro, a 7-time Pro Bowler. Did get a ring with the Patriots, of course. He had more than 29 INTs, didn't he? That's a misprint.
Yeah, he definitely did.
It's 54 or something like that. 46, I forget. It was a lot. And this other stat that's on this page, 411 tackles. Listen, I had him on my list. You could make a case that maybe he didn't have the most impressive stats, but he was just a guy for years. You just didn't throw against him.
Revis Island.
You'd literally kind of take half the field out of the equation, and match him up against whoever the opposing offense's best receiver was, and you knew that even the great ones were pretty much going to be limited against him. So he was just, really kind of the epitome of the shutdown corner.
Yeah,
you just didn't want to throw his way, and as good as a lot of DBs are, they still got thrown at times. But listen, unfortunately there was a little bit of not a ruckus, but some bad feelings at times with the Jets, and they had to make a decision about letting him go. But still, one of the most beloved Jets, and faster and more physical than maybe people realized. He's not a tackler, but he had more than 400 tackles. But
it was his ability to turn and keep with receivers that were, what did they say? Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, but did it backwards and in heels. I mean, that's sort of what it's like in today's. He's more of a current player. And there's so much speed with these receivers now, and you're not allowed to be physical. And so the fact that he was that good of a defender just proved how sound he was technically, and how he used his speed and his positioning. He was really good at positioning himself and getting between the ball and the receiver. And I think he's been the best in the last 10 years for sure.
Absolutely. There you go. Number 8, Darrelle Revis. I'll take number 7. Number 7 is Dick Night Train Lane. Richard Lane, as you would imagine. His nickname, Night Train, was Night Train was his nickname. Excuse me. He played for the Rams for 2 years, just for 2 years. He's undrafted in 52 and went to the Rams. 52 and 53 played for the Rams. Then he went to the Chicago Cardinals for 6 years. And then I think he played his most memorable. I played decent years with the Cardinals, but yes, that's right, folks. Those of you that aren't aware, the Cardinals were actually in Chicago. That's where they started, and they only went to St. Louis. Yes, even St. Louis in the '60s, and then in the '80s went to Phoenix. But the bulk of their time, longest time, was in Chicago. But in any event, Night Train Lane wound up in Detroit. Played his most memorable, more of his memorable years were in Detroit. 7-time Pro Bowler, 7-time first team All Pro, 2-time NFL interceptions leader early in his career. Remember the 50th anniversary team, 75th anniversary team, 100th anniversary team, 50s All Decade team. He's in the Arizona Cardinals Ring of Honor, and he is a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He had a technique. His technique was like the foundation for like textbook cornerback play as we know it. He had a bait and switch style that would make quarterbacks think that they had an open receiver, and all of a sudden there he was, ready for the pass the second it was released.
14 interceptions, right, his rookie year?
14 his rookie year, yep. Yeah. He total of 68 interceptions over his career. He had 68 interceptions in his career, which lasted 14 years. So that's pretty damn good. But yeah, he had great coverage skills, and he was a hard hitter. It was like a train was coming at you. So there you go. Number 4. I'm sorry, number 4. Number 7, Dick Night Train Lane. Mr. Harry.
Yes.
To number 6.
Why don't you put the ticker up there so I know exactly who number 6 is? Because I guessed right. Number 6, also known as 6B on our list, but
when we had 19 players on the top 10,
right. Is Mr. Emlyn Tennell, who was a past Old Balls recipient, if my memory is correct.
Yes. And
this guy was just he was just incredible. He was the first African American to play for the New York Giants, and he was the first African American to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
He kind of reinvented the being a defensive back in some ways. He had 79 career interceptions, and he had over 1,200 return yards on interceptions. I mean, and he had, he was a punt returner, a 2-time NFL champion, 9-time Pro Bowler, and part of the 50th and 100th anniversary all-time team. For that era, he was not only, I think, one of the best, if not the best defensive back, but he was one of the best football players. I mean, he just turned games around, and he knew the game. He was a smart guy, and one of the best New York Giants of all time for sure. And went on to play for a coach by the name of Vince Lombardi with the Green Bay Packers. So
won an NFL championship with him too.
Yeah, won it with both teams, and pretty amazing. Died way too young, but he was a fantastic football player.
You think about what he was doing in the time that he was doing it, those numbers. And is he still number 2 on the interceptions?
I think so. Yeah.
I
mean, that's just unbelievable. He was a big guy. They used to call him defensive halfbacks back then. Which, it was kind of different. There wasn't really cornerbacks then. It was a different game in a lot of ways. So you had to be more physical. You were definitely involved in the running game more. I mean, he was 6'4", 200 pounds.
There were big guys that played on defense. Nowadays, if you're, over 6'2", you're almost exclusively a receiver. Most of the D-backs are smaller.
Right.
But back in those days, there were bigger guys in the secondary.
Yeah, he was one of the best, I think, football players. If you're doing a top 100 or 200 football players, he'd definitely be on that list.
Absolutely. No, he would be. And he's on most of those lists. Almost every time they're doing a top 100 players of the 1900s or whatever, he's always there. And he's high up on the list too. It's just an amazing talent.
Yeah, the Sporting News had him number 70 in the list of the 100 greatest football players. So, I mean, Emlyn Tennell, number 6B. I don't know.
Number six for this list, but
Number six with a bullet.
Number six be in your programs. Number 6 in your hearts. Nah.
That's it.
There you go. All right, Mr. RadioPete, why don't you take us to number 5?
Is this the champ?
That would be him.
All right, Champ Bailey. First off, I'll just say Champ Bailey was a guy that I don't know if there was any. Well, obviously, fans who hated the Denver Broncos might have hated him, but Champ Bailey was just a great player, just somebody that I had a lot of respect for as a player, as an individual, and one of the best. Started his career with Washington in 1999, went to Denver and played there from 2004 to 2013. 2019 Pro Football Hall of Fame, 3-time first-time All-Pro, 12-time Pro Bowler, 12. 909 tackles, 52 interceptions, which is a pretty darn good number. And again, into the Hall of Fame in 2019. Never won a Super Bowl, but that is not something that would, I think, he was just too good to, that's not going to keep him out of the conversation, I think, of pretty much anyone's top 10.
I mean, imagine adding him to the latest Broncos championship team in that defense. Oof.
Yeah. I mean, he was the cream of the crop. I don't, for a number of years, I don't think there was literally not a better cornerback in football.
No,
for some of those years.
He was the most dominant cornerback this century.
Yeah.
Yep.
The old champ.
Champ Bailey. That would be our number 5. I will take number 4. Number 4 will be Mr. Mel Blount. Melvin Cornell Blount. He was drafted in the 3rd round, pick 53 in the 1970 draft. He by the Steelers, played his entire career with Pittsburgh, 14 seasons. He was 4-time Super Bowl champion. He was a member of all of those Super Bowl teams. 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 4-time second-team All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year in 75, NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 75, AFC Defensive Player of the Year in 75, NFL Interceptions Leader in 75. That was a good year for him, 75. 75th Anniversary Team, 100th Anniversary Team, 80s All-Decade Team. He was on the 80s All-Decade Team. He only played, at the beginning of the 80s. 57 interceptions. He got 737 interception yards, 2 touchdowns with those interceptions. Run back. Member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Mel Blount. He's those Steel Curtain defenses would not have been it would have been dominant, but wouldn't have been as dominant without Blount there for those years. He was just he had those guys on the line and the linebackers, and Blount was behind them, and they all knew that Mel was back there. Just love to watch him play.
Those Steelers 70s Steelers defensive units,
insane.
Just be so nice to have a time capsule and make them play the Chiefs with the old 70s rules,
right?
Just have Jack Ham come out with all his elbow pads on, and anyway, they were insane. I would love to see that too. They should, EA Sports should actually pull something like that up. Just 1975 Steelers defense versus the 2020 Chiefs offense. Just their 2019, well, whatever you want to call it.
That could be a last man standing situation.
Yeah, probably.
And there's one guy left standing on the field. Probably would be a Steeler because, of that era. But listen, the thing about Blount, again, we were talking about big guys, who played cornerback. He was 6'4", right? Went about 205 or 210.
He would have been a safety today, maybe even a linebacker. I mean,
I would say he would probably be a linebacker because of his fearsomeness. But he was when Mel Blount gave you the bump and run, he gave you a real bump. You were not going you were going backwards for a yard before you started moving forward.
Yes, kids. Back in the day, the defensive player was allowed to sometimes touch the offensive player.
You could kind of get in his way. And look, if you look at those great Steeler defenses, right, and you say, okay, you're going to start a team, you can take any one guy from the Steeler defense.
Yeah.
I don't know what the percentages would be, but there would be, I would think, a healthy percentage that would say, I'll take Mel Blount first.
Yeah, he kind of goes a little forgotten on that team because there were just so many all-stars. I mean, you have somebody like Mean Joe Green and Jack Ham and Jack Lambert, and I mean, he was not as flamboyant or publicized as much as those guys, but he was, he's one of the best, obviously. Number 4 on our list.
Mm-hmm. Number 4, Mr.
Not 4A.
Not 4A.
No.
Just 4.
4 on his own. Absolutely.
Number 4 on our list and number 4 ever in our hearts.
There you
Mr.
go.
Mel Blount.
All right, Mr. Harry Lug Nutz, why don't you take us to number 3?
Number 3, who would probably tell you he was number 1, but
he'll definitely tell you he's number 1.
Mr.
I saw him ranked number 1 on a couple of lists.
As he's stealing your pizza.
Yeah, stealing your pizza. Stealing your pizza. Mr. Deion Primetime Sanders, who, he was good. He won a Super Bowl with the 49ers and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
What was he? A 2-time Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, 6-time first team All-Pro, NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 94, 90s All-Decade Team. He was also a hell of a punt returner.
Yeah.
And, he's on the NFL 100th anniversary all-time team, 53 interceptions. Here's what's really phenomenal about him is that he had 10 defensive touchdowns in his career and 9 return touchdowns. He also had 60 receptions. So, and 3 receiving touchdowns. So he was one of these guys who was a triple threat in a lot of ways and was just a great defensive back. He just couldn't throw his way. There were 5-6 years there where no one would, we talk about Darrelle Revis and we talk about other cornerbacks on this list. He was the one who really changed the game where it was like, you just don't throw towards Deion Sanders because he was that athletic and had that much skill. And he had the flamboyancy. He would make today's wide receivers who you think are the most flamboyant people on the planet seem tame. He was just, he was a personality. He was good for ratings, that's for sure.
And I have.
And he's a pretty good commentator. I mean, he has, if you really listen, there's some information there, and he does break it down pretty interesting.
He does it pretty well.
Yeah, once you kind of get past Deion,
I mean, listening to him and Randy Moss talk about football is always like, all right, I gotta somehow find
but that was
what's going on there.
Look, I think you could make the argument that he may have been certainly amongst, or maybe the greatest athlete who ever played football.
Well, he was a hell of a baseball player.
He was he was a good baseball. He did everything, and he was a threat in so many ways. You're right. You just didn't throw to him, and you didn't want to kick to him.
Well, they ran trick plays with him, and
and he could do anything, and he was. You don't want
to throw there. You don't want to punt to him. Yeah, I mean,
he was a multiple threat. Not big on tackling.
No. Again, he was the beginning of this new era of cornerbacks.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to say that he's the best cornerback of all time because I think that position has changed. But within the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, or maybe even longer now,
30 years with him.
30 years. Since that position changed and since the rule changes, there's been nobody. I mean, I think you talk about him and Darrelle Revis. Some of the other guys on our list were kind of a little bit, Champ Bailey would certainly be up there, but he's probably on most people's list the best cornerback of all time because he sort of was one of those guys who was part of reinventing that position, and he took it to another. He did. There was you never saw the safety creeping over for double coverage when Deion Sanders was on.
He didn't have to.
Never. No. And that's what made both of that 49ers team that he was on and the Dallas teams. It gave them an advantage that you just don't see very often.
I tried to. I was hoping that would fall into Pete reading him because of course.
No, it's okay. Dallas, I don't have to have every Cowboy.
But you know what? I put up the pictures too. I put up there. I figured you'd like this one, right? But you wouldn't want him in that picture, right?
He was great on the Falcons.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So then I figured, okay, maybe you'd like him better in the San Francisco.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but
did you have one of him in a Jets uniform?
No, but I got one. I got this one.
See, that's maybe the best one of all. Look, here's the thing about Prime. For all the bluster,
Here you go. Here's your picture.
yeah,
You know him so well that it's just Prime, huh?
You guys-
First
Well,
name basis.
Half a first nickname basis.
we haven't talked in a while, but we still exchange holiday cards. The thing about Primetime was he delivered, for all the bluster and all the talk and the jewelry and all. I mean, if you go back and look at clips, it was just crazy ridiculous.
Of course he delivered.
But he delivered every time. It wasn't all
But
talk.
we love sports figures like that. I mean, Joe Namath, Reggie Jackson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. When players like that can deliver, most people love it.
Yeah.
If you talk the talk and then you walk the walk, you will be loved.
You will be.
I mean, he's definitely the opposite of somebody coming up on our list here. Maybe the next two on our list.
Yeah.
But
probably both of them. Actually, both of them. Yeah. So, all right. Well, there you go. Number 3, primetime Deion Sanders. All right, Mr. Radio Pete, why don't you bring us to number 2?
Well, let's talk about number 2. Best known, of course, for his time in Pittsburgh. It's Rod Woodson.
Second Woodson on our list.
Yeah, the
second Woodson.
Woodson on, and the slightly better of the two Woodsons, I would say. He played 17 years, I think, all told. 238 games, 71 interceptions. And this is a number that really jumped out at me. 1,483 return yards.
Yeah, even more than Deion.
Yeah. And over the course of his career in various capacities, 12 touchdowns. So, look, Pittsburgh from 87 to 96. San Francisco in 97. He played with Baltimore when they were the Ravens, or should they say the Ravens when they were in Baltimore. And Oakland to end his career in 02 to 03. 6 times, first team All-Pro, 11-time Pro Bowler, champion with the Ravens in 2000 there. 1,163 tackles, so nearly 1,200 tackles, 71 interceptions, 13 and a half sacks, 75th anniversary team member, Hall of Fame class of 2009, and the NFL 100 all-time team. He was Deion without the bluster in a number of ways before Deion was Deion,
and more physical,
and much more physical. Nobody really worried too much about getting hit by Deion Sanders because he wasn't interested in hitting anybody. Woodson was a guy who could take your head off and great on the blitz, which is something you don't get to say about a whole lot of cornerbacks, even the really good ones. Yeah. Just a monstrous presence out there. And
he kind of floated. When I think of him, I think of him as sometimes a cornerback, sometimes a safety. In nickel packages, he was kind of maybe more of a safety at times.
One of those guys that can kind of read the situation and adjust. Yeah. Defensive Player of the Year in '93, by the way. Forgot to add that.
He was doing Deion things before Deion was Deion.
Yeah. And listen, when he had a contract holdout with the Steelers in '87 as a rookie, and he was racing in track and field competitions, doing the high hurdles while he was holding out. And it wasn't because he was anybody at that point. It was because he was good enough to make it on the team.
Sure.
So, just an incredible athlete. Again, a great athlete who was a great player as well.
Yep.
Number 2, Rod Woodson.
And of course,
yeah.
Can't really see the pose. Whatever Absolutely. It is. I think that was the last time that never mind. I'm probably going to say something that's wrong, so I'm not going to say it.
All right.
Come on.
Say it anyway. Why not?
Nope.
Just deny it.
I've already done that 4 times.
You can deny it afterwards.
There's no facts.
I'll edit it out if it's
No, you're not going to edit anything.
You think this is a factual show?
He was also the first champion of Dancing with the Stars.
We just told everybody that it was 8 days in a week before. I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but no one can really check that.
That's true. No one can fact check that fact.
Right.
Oh, jeez. Number 2, Rod Woodson. All right. I'll take number 1. Number one was number 1 on all of our lists. Number 1 was number 1 on all of our lists. Mr. Ronnie Lott. Mr. Ronald Mandel Lott. I think he's related to Howie. Not sure, but Ronald Mandel Lott. Ronnie Lott. He was drafted in the first round, 8th pick in 1981 by the 49ers. He played 10 seasons for the 49ers, and he played a couple of years for the Raiders, and he played a couple of years for the Jets.
Yeah, a couple of decent years.
Yeah, and then he bounced around for a couple of off seasons, and that was it. So he pretty much finished up his career playing in meaningful football with the Jets. So, but yeah, and he's number one on our list. 4-time Super Bowl champion. He won 4 Super Bowls with the 49ers.
All but the 49ers.
All with the 49ers, absolutely.
Does he have the most Super Bowl wins on our list, or did Woodson? Was he not Woodson?
Blount, but they both had 4.
They both had 4. Yeah.
They both had 4. So yeah, 10 years, 10 Pro Bowl appearances, 8-time first team All Pro, 2-time NFL interceptions leader. Remember the 75th anniversary team, the 100th anniversary team, first team NFL 1980s All-Decade team, second team NFL 1990s All-Decade team. His number 42 in San Francisco is retired. He's in the San Francisco Hall of Fame. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame, and he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. 1,146 tackles, 63 interceptions, 730 interception return yards. He was a freak athlete, and he could close on a play as fast as anyone, if not faster than anybody else.
Oh yeah. Do you think defenses changed that year? He came into the league the same year as Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. Defense is definitely between LT and Lott. It was a defensive year in that draft, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but
Lott had an uncanny ability to kind of sniff out what the play was going to be, and I'm sure it wasn't all
spectacular. Yeah.
His football IQ was better than most.
Yeah, and he wasn't always right.
Quarterbacks.
He wasn't always right, but when he was right, it was usually complete disruption for whatever that play was.
And receivers were afraid of him.
Well, yeah, and look, there's the pinky thing.
Yeah.
Just he cut off part of his finger because he didn't want to go through surgery and miss playing time.
Exactly.
Has he ever confirmed that? I mean, we know he's missing part of his finger, but has he ever confirmed that that's actually what happened?
He never confirmed it to me. So
I mean, I don't know why. I certainly believe that it happened. I don't know why you would lose half of your pinky if that wasn't the case. But.
I think he just lost it in somebody's face mask and didn't realize it until after the game.
Realized it after the game. It was a little wet and
made
a little bit.
Story the next week.
Yeah, my hands hurt.
That's it.
Rather than have surgery, I decided to cut it off.
But yeah, those I mean, they receivers. A quarterback went over the middle to a receiver. That receiver knew damn well he was getting laid out by Lott. It was, he was a monster, and rightfully so. He was just insane in that secondary of Frisco. And I mean, he was still playing great for the Raiders and for the Jets. He had a couple great years with the Jets at the end of his career there.
Yeah, I mean, he was at the end of his career, but he was in no way, shape, or form a shell of his former self.
Not at all.
Not in top form, but he was an old man by that time. But he was still a valuable contribution and a big part of the success that the Jets did have when he was with the team.
Awesome. Well, there you go. There's our number one defensive back.
And we never mentioned this, but on top of all these honors that all these players have, Ronnie Lott now has the unique distinction of being number one on our list.
He's number one on our list.
He may not ever know.
He's definitely tweeting it as we speak.
We'll tweet it at him later. Yeah,
we'll let him know.
Yeah.
I think it's
it's the dubious honor of being number one on our list.
He could throw all his other accolades out the window and say, "I don't Super Bowls. Yeah, those are nice." But this Logger Room Sports Podcast voted me number one DB of all time.
On Festivus 2020.
Probably what I'm most proud of.
Consensus number one.
Consensus number one.
I think if he knew that, he would probably say that.
Absolutely. So,
I know Prime is excited.
Prime is excited.
He's arguing right now.
Prime's excited.
Yeah,
Ronnie will be equally as excited. Definitely.
Right. I imagine.
That's right.
There we go. Top 10.
There you go. Top 10, Mr. Ronnie Lott. All right. Well, that brings us to our favorite segment of the week, that would be. What would that be? Do you know what that'd be?
I hope you do.
Oh,
Hope the engineer knows what it is.
Oh, I know what it is. That would be this.
Old balls.
There you go. So why don't you tell us who this week's Old Balls is there, Mr.
You
Harry?
know, for the first time since we started doing this week we have a pair of balls. And
a pair of old balls.
And the reason for that is that I think these two guys, you know, if we did a top 15 or 20 list, these guys, one of these guys, maybe both, would have been on that list. And when I think back to the late 70s, early 80s and defensive backfield tandems, I don't think there was anyone better than Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes. Now, Mike Haynes was probably the better overall player. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler. I think he had, over 60 interceptions. Maybe not quite that many, but
46.
46. Okay, but they together, Hayes and Haynes were just so dominant. And Lester Hayes is probably more renowned or more known throughout history because number one, he was referred to as the Judge and Lester the Molester, just because of his coverage. He was incredibly physical and all over you. And also because there was a rule instigated because of him outlawing the use of stickum. This guy used so much stickum. He just basically, stickum was this product that you basically put on your hands to help you with the grip. It was glue. He put it on his hands, on his arms, on his shirt, on his neck. I mean, he was, when they weighed him without stickum, he was 5 pounds lighter. He was a hell of a player at that time. He was just one of the best at the position. And, 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Raiders, 5-time Pro Bowler, NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1980. And there's some argument that, maybe the stickum helped him because he led the NFL with 13 interceptions. And I think, his interception numbers obviously dropped off after he could no longer use the stickum. But, he is. I just think these two guys were two of the most interesting. And if you look back on those Raiders teams, they were just a bunch of characters. And these guys were definitely two of the more interesting. You kind of had the straight guy with Hayes and the rambunctious pre-Dion nut job. I think he once called himself he was a big Star Wars fan, and he once called himself the only real Jedi. So there you go. This week's Old Balls. First pair of balls.
First
Mike Haynes and Lester Hayes.
Haynes and Hayes.
Haynes and Hayes. And they were a precursor to Revis and Cromartie.
Right. They really were.
Ways,
Yeah, although they had less children.
They did.
That's right.
And Mike Haynes, by the way, I mean he's a Raider legend, but his number 40 is actually retired by the Pats too.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, and listen, it used to have so much stickum. Like if the ball bounced off the receiver's hand and would hit him in the shoulder, it would stick to his uniform.
Well, the receivers were the ones who were using it. So we never talk about receivers' numbers going down. Because wasn't it Biletnikoff or somebody who turned him onto it? So anyway,
I think so. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But still, you're right. He was doing more than putting a little bit on his hands. It was if the ball touched him anywhere on the top half of his body, that ball was basically going to stick.
But he was literally all over you like glue. I mean, But I don't think there's anyone who covered people more closely. Like he was on you at the line of scrimmage, and you never got separation from the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in position to get a hand or an elbow or whatever it was on the ball in the first place. And those guys in particular, they put the dagger in the heart of a couple of Cleveland Browns teams.
Yeah, they certainly did.
Nemesis of a lot of good football teams.
There you go. This week's Old Balls.
Old balls.
All right. And there you have it. Not much else. I mean, NBA started. There's not much going on in the
world.
In the world, there's not much.
Well, I just want to say, I'm excited about the Nets looking good.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say there's not much going on in MLB. I mean, we're pretty much where we were last week as far as any hot stove conversation goes.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that the Mets reached out to DJ LeMahieu, but I think that's just just because they had to. I don't think there's anything that the Yankees should be worrying about on that one. Harry, you worried, Harry?
I'm not worried. What I am worried about is that I need to jump off this and go to another engagement. So
something important to do, huh?
Not really that important, but yes, it's a little higher paying than
all right,
than this podcast, But
you gotta put in for a raise.
Happy Festivus and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. And you guys please continue to talk about, do a deep dive into the, how the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to look this year.
Well, we'll have a
team.
We'll have a We'll have a big NBA show next week.
Yes.
In the middle of
what is there? 6 games on Christmas Day?
There's 5 games on Christmas.
5 games.
5.
Plus
the Knicks are not one of them.
No. Plus, there's two old guys playing at the schoolyard.
This is true too.
10:30 a.m. for the early game, if you're interested.
Well, I think the 3-on-3 championship is during halftime of one of those.
That's right.
NBA games.
Yeah, but the three that are taking on they're taking on us, the 3 of us.
Yeah, but even the coin's not picking us.
The coin's not picking us. I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll miss you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Happy Festivus. Happy Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas. And we will talk to you next Wednesday, Mr. Lug Nutz.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Enjoy. All right. He had to bail and jump onto another project. Another project.
It's a work thing, I think. Right?
It's a work thing. It's
Yes.
a work thing. He works. He does things other than this. We can't, unlike you and I, we can't all be supported by this podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true.
Well, so anyway, what I was saying is, and we'll talk about the Mets in a second, because I know there's only 2 games in the NBA, and who cares about the Clippers and the Lakers? That means nothing. Really, the Nets and Golden State doesn't necessarily mean anything, other than the Nets looked very good.
They did. And KD looked great. He didn't look like he was out for a year and a half. He really didn't.
He hadn't played in 500 and some odd days.
Yeah.
And listen,
he looked like KD.
Listen, you get the people on the radio today talking about the Nets and how they're now the favorites in the East, and certainly there's some truth to that, I think, but it's a little premature. Right. But I'll just say this: everybody pretty much is agreeing right now. Forget about James Harden going to Brooklyn. They're better off without him, and they're better without him because of their depth. And because they're gonna have to give up so much. They're probably the deepest team in the East right now.
They're players that they have, and the players that and some of the players, if not one or more of the players that the Rockets would want back, they don't need to get rid of them. They need to stay, to stay there.
These are guys that would be starters anywhere else, and sure. I would say between Dinwiddie and probably LeVert, those guys are like borderline all-stars. And would go somewhere else and probably be, number 2 or number 3 scoring option. Certainly in the case of LeVert. Exactly. So keep them there. Keep that depth. You get depth. You got Kyrie and KD are both shooters. You got Joe Harris who can shoot the lights out of it when he's on.
Sure.
And you got a super deep bench. So listen, we're going to see how they match up against Milwaukee and all that. But and Steve Nash, you would think is going to get better as a coach.
Sure. I think you're probably looking at your Eastern Conference championship game between. It would be my pick. I mean, even I'm not picking it just because they played so well against the Warriors last night, but I think they got the chemistry and I think they got it right. But I think Milwaukee's still going to be there.
I think so too.
And you can talk about the Heat, but for some reason I'm seeing the Bucks and the Nets being your 2 top teams in the East.
The Heat need to bring in a superstar, And listen, Jimmy Butler, I don't think gets enough credit. I mean, I think you could label him a superstar.
Yeah.
No,
he doesn't. He doesn't get enough credit.
I mean, look, they play as a team and they do a lot of things right. The Miami Heat do, and that's what got them to the finals. And honestly, the only chance they had, and the games that they won against LA was when Butler went off.
Yeah.
And you really
Absolutely.
can't expect him to do that night after night after
You
night.
can't.
So, but they could, but bringing in the right person, and I don't think it'll be James Harden, but
It's not going to be hard.
could turn them into a very formidable team. Harden going to Philly and teaming with Embiid
You know
could
what?
turn them
That would be.
into a very, like the East could get.
Hmm.
I don't see much coming out of Boston. We'll see. They've got who do they have? Tatum is in Boston now, or Simmons. I don't know, one of those guys.
Right.
But there's no Haywood, although he was injured and didn't really do much for them last year.
No.
And yet to see what Milwaukee should be a better team with Drew Holiday joining
Into the compo.
yeah, and company out there. So, but to me, the East is up and coming. You've got a bunch of teams who, again, probably going to go up against the Lakers and lose.
But once maybe. I mean, but you know what? It's going to be the same thing. I mean, you look at what like the Warriors and the Cavaliers a couple of years ago. They'll go up against a couple teams in the East. They'll go up against the Lakers, and eventually they'll win. And eventually the Lakers will tail off, and eventually LeBron will retire. But it's a matter of when. But
not for another 6 years,
at least. Yeah, but the Nets are. I mean, last night's game, Durant had 22 points. Kyrie had 26 points, and LeVert had 20 points. Between the three of them, they had 68 points.
Yeah,
they
had 48 in the first. And look, Golden 48
in the first quarter. Yeah.
And Golden State is not the same without Klay Thompson. They're going to be around, but I don't see them being particularly formidable out of the West. There's only so much that Curry can do.
You know what those numbers say to me also is spreading around. It's not like Durant needs all the baskets, and Kyrie too. I mean, they gave it to LeVert as much as they shot themselves.
Yeah, and again, Harris is a pretty good shooter, but Kyrie and KD, those are the shooters. Yeah. So you don't need to surround them with other guys that are known primarily for shooting. You can put some defense in there.
Put some D in there, absolutely.
So they're a very well balanced, very deep team. I'm excited. And we'll, as we always say, as long as everybody stays healthy.
Right.
That goes for any team. But the West is also, the Lakers are going to have a little more. Denver is up and coming.
Denver's up and coming too.
Portland is a team that you're going to have to watch out for. Yeah. The Mavericks, we're going to see what they might be ready to take a next step.
We're going to have some good basketball this year. We are.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very exciting NBA season.
And you know what? I got to tell you, this is the first time, and I may be speaking too soon, and I'm sure a week or two I could very well be taking this back, but. I'm not, and make no mistake, I'm not saying it how it's going to come out, but I'm excited to watch Knicks basketball this year. And I'm not excited to watch Knicks basketball because I think they're going to win. They're going to be formidable in the East. No, I'm excited to watch them because they're going to play decent basketball. These kids are pretty good. Toppin is, I think, the right pick. Barrett's playing, decent ball. I mean, he wasn't,
He's going to get some help.
Yeah.
What did he have last year?
Nobody. Exactly. But everybody and Thibodeau's bringing the defense. It's going to be interesting. They're going to be a team that okay, the next game's on. I'm going to watch that. It's going to be decent basketball finally to watch in the Garden for the first time in 8 years.
At least. Well, look, I think if Thibodeau is able to exert upon this team his game plan and his, to get them to buy in to what he's selling, then the Knicks are going to be a team that other teams are not going to want to play.
Right.
Not necessarily because they're going to win a lot of games, but because they are going to dog you and they are going to tire you out and they are going to be relentless defensively. And that you're going to go to war with the Knicks, even though they're not the most talented, right. but they're young, right. and fresh. And I think with Tibbs in charge, again, if they buy in, they're just going to be a team that is going to be going after everything, diving on the floor into the stands, going for every rebound, pushing it all the time, relentless.
Right. And they're not going to be a team. Maybe they'll lose 2/3 of their games or more, but they're not going to be out of the games that they're losing.
Yeah, I think
blown out. They're going to be competitive in all of the games they're going to play.
I think
to some degree.
Yeah, they're going to have off nights. They're going to have nights, and again, they're young. They're going to have nights when they're out of sync, and sometimes when you're a younger player, you don't have that experience of getting yourself out of a funk. You're just kind of in a funk. You go, I don't know what to do. Whereas a guy who's been in the league for an extra 4, 5, 6 years kind of has a method for getting himself maybe back to form when he's kind of down. But I think they're going to be enjoyable to watch in terms of how they build and how they develop over the course of the season.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
They won't win a lot of games, but this is a year I think you set the foundation for what you want to be and the type of team you want to be. And if you are successful at that, even if it doesn't translate into a lot of wins, you're going to have players in this league who they want to come to New York and be part of this. This is it. That's a team that plays the way I want to play. And some of these, bigger names, some of these superstars are going to say, I could go there and
help them get to the next level.
Right. I could be a part. I could be the final piece that gets them over the hump.
Right. I don't have to be the entire piece, and the garden is sinking or whatever. The garden is solid, but I'm the piece that's going to put them over the edge. So it's going to be me, but they'll be there for me.
I don't need to go and score 35 points a game because I know our defense is tough.
Right.
We're generally not going to have to score. We're going to hold other teams scoring down so that we don't have to score as many. And you get a couple of guys, you get a big name and you get one of those, you get like a supporting player who, does not quite the star level, but, sort of right on the cusp of it.
Yeah.
And, you get that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You get a Jimmy Butler and you get a, whoever's coming out, you get a big name. Listen, if the West gets tougher, and if the Lakers continue to dominate, you might have some guys who want to get the hell out of the West and head to the East. You'll be competing with Brooklyn, but still,
and that might be more interesting to them because not only they're out of the West, they can get there and go up against the Lakers, and they're competing with Brooklyn, and it makes New York attractive at that point all around.
Right, yeah. If you can't ever get into the finals because the Lakers are always in your way, well, then you might want to go east where at least you might have a shot to get there, to get to the finals.
Right.
So
we will see. We will see. So
we're 2 games in.
We're 2 days in, and we'll talk about there'll be 5. There's 5 games on Friday. For basketball, I know I'll be watching some of them. I'll be putting the Vikings Saints game on when that comes on.
Oh yeah,
but I'll be going back and forth. I mean, it's Christmas was always, hey, you know what? When the next game comes on, we got to watch the Knicks. But they haven't played on Christmas in a while.
Yeah, no, it's been a while.
There's a reason for that. So hopefully they can get back to that. So,
and listen, the Viking Saints might be a game you have to watch every second of it, and it is finally decided with 2 seconds left in the game, or it could be a game that's over by 3 minutes left in the first quarter.
Right. Exactly.
It has the possibilty of going either way.
Exactly.
So, baseball. Nothing's really changed.
Not so much. Apparently, Real Muto is looking like he's going to wind up staying in Philly. It's a reunion is starting to shape up. It's come out that he was kind of counting on the Mets, taking him, and then they went and they grabbed McCann. And which I'm fine with, by the way. I think you are.
I think so. They
didn't need to spend the money on Ramuto. So
no, listen. I'm thinking they kind of wanted to get McCann before somebody else did. There's a possibility, and Real Muto will probably get more money going back to Philly because there's a possibility that he might. I think it was a few years ago. Was it Dallas Keuchel? Who didn't get signed until
a month into the season.
Yeah.
It was Keuchel. It was Keuchel. Yeah.
Yeah. There's kind of been this. Real Muto is a guy that I could see maybe not getting signed, and his price kind of dropping.
Yeah.
And the Mets, I think, probably made the right move. They might have been thinking, well, that might happen if we wait a little while, but I think they just thought we want Springer and we want Bauer. I think more than Real Muto.
Right.
And McCann is the numbers are, there. And we want to make sure we get McCann and we get him for $10 million a year because we're going to spend, 25 on Springer or how much Bauer is going to be. Well, that might be 25. I don't know what they're going to pay Springer for. $100 million for 5 years, maybe. I don't know.
100, probably 100 for 4 or for 5. Yeah.
For 4 or 5. Bauer's going to be more than that. So they said, let's not lose out on McCann, hoping that Real Muto drops down, because maybe nobody's going to sign him. Maybe everybody's a little bit gun shy.
Right.
And like I said, he might get more going back to Philly than from anybody else.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think it was a good move to get McCann.
I think it was a good move to get McCann too, and they're shaping up their front office pretty decent too. Just that when I mentioned before, when Harry was still on the show, before he left, that the Mets did reach out to DJ LeMahieu.
I'd love for them to sign LeMahieu.
I don't expect anything to come of that. I mean, they got a plethora of infielders. They don't need to spend the money on DJ. They don't.
No. Might be nice to.
It would be nice. It's nice to think about, but I mean, I want to see McCann. Not McCann. I want to see McNeil at second base. I want to see McNeil, the everyday second baseman. I want to see Jeff McNeil stand there. JD, all these damn initials. JD at third, and probably rotating a little bit. I mean, getting Guillorme is he's a great bench addition. I mean, I wouldn't like to see them get rid of that guy because between third base, shortstop, and his bat, he's a pretty good player. But yeah, rotate in there. I mean, their infield is pretty much set. For the most part, I didn't think that trading for Lindor, giving up maybe J.D. Davis and Jimenez was a good idea. You don't want to do that. You got these good young players. Why? I mean, yes, Lindor is here we talk about with Trevor Lawrence, a generational talent. Yes, he's amazing. He absolutely is. That doesn't mean that one of these guys can't be. And the numbers are there. The play is there. Spend the money in the places you need it. That's my point. You don't need the infield. You need catching. You need pitching. You need you need bullpen. You need a center fielder. Go get that.
I would say amongst the projected starting infielders, maybe Davis is probably the guy that you might have the most question about.
Sure.
But maybe you don't think he has as high a ceiling as some of these other guys.
Right.
But I wouldn't say it's to a point where you're thinking about getting rid of him. You want to give him a little bit more time to develop, because it could turn into a very, very
and I want to give him an everyday position too. I mean, you're throwing in, he's an infielder, and granted, he's not the best infielder in the world, but he's an infielder. He's not an outfielder, and they're throwing him out to left field. But
he gets a chance to play where his more natural position is.
Sure.
And play every day, and then you get it. Then you can really judge how he's going to develop, rather than shuffling him in between positions and potentially being more of a part-time player. So, I agree. They need more in the outfield, and they only need one spot in the outfield.
Yeah, they need. Yeah, exactly.
You only need to fill center field.
That's it. So, and you know what? If you really, really, really want Francisco Lindor, wait a year. He's a free agent.
Yeah.
Unless he signs throughout the year with whatever team he gets traded to, or if he stays in Cleveland, the Cleveland baseball team, I guess it's being called now.
Yeah.
But
Cleveland Non-Indians.
The Non-Indians?
The Non-Indians.
The Non-Indians.
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 Yeah, I wouldn't imagine. Well, where's Lindor going to go where he's going to want to re-sign?
Right.
It's going to be a contender.
And that's exactly my point. And if the Mets are going to turn into what we all hope and pray that they're going to turn into now, wherever he plays, even if he does wind up staying in Cleveland another year, it might be very attractive to him to go to the Mets. And then they can do something that they've never done before. Be smart, not trade away young talent, and wait until he's a free agent and go get him then.
Yeah. And if he has another great year, you're going to want to test the waters.
Right.
Even if he's traded, you're not going to want to sign unless you feel like, well, this is a team that's going to the World Series next season, and maybe that's why he'll be brought in, or he's going to want to test the waters. Even if he goes somewhere and they go to the World Series and they win the World Series, he's probably going to want to test the free agency water.
Sure,
absolutely. And that may include the team that he gets traded to.
Right,
but that's where Cohen's deep pockets come in.
Exactly. So that I think is the perfect thing. I mean, you haven't heard much of that talk right now, so I think that's out of the water, and that's good.
Yeah.
Don't go for that. Go out, sign Springer. Go out, sign Bauer. Get a couple more arms for the bullpen. you can pretty much balance out your rotation then, because at some point Thor's coming back, right? He just signed a $9.7 million extension.
He's coming back sometime in the summer, right?
At some point, but hopefully before the All-Star break, assuming that there is an All-Star break. Assuming that the season is somewhat closer to normal.
Your starting pitching is looking really good.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll see. Thor's probably not going to be Thor in his heyday. It's going to take a little while to get back, but
if you got DeGrom, Bauer, Stroman, Thor when he comes back, Matz. I don't know if you heard, there was an interview with James McCann, and James McCann actually works out with Steven Matz. He has actually worked out with Steven Matz in the off season. Not even prior to being signed, right. Obviously. That
might be one of the reasons
he's caught bullpen sessions for Steven Matz, and he thinks that Steven Matz's stuff is dynamite, and he needs to just get work on some of his mechanics and mold things around, and he can be back to where he was headed in the beginning of his career, and that's attractive. That's interesting, So
and if you've got some cover for him, then you can give him some time to be out there, even if he's not at his best initially. Right. You don't have to give him. Well, we gave him 4 starts and it's been rough, so now we're going to send him down. You can give him a little bit more time because you've got other quality pitchers.
Right.
So and look, if LeMahieu, if it ever gets, if it gets serious that he's maybe coming to the Mets, that might be Cohen wanting to quietly stick it to the Yankees.
Yeah, and
he said he's not competing with them.
Right, he said he's not competing with the Yankees, but how can he not?
If you get an opportunity to get the batting champion, right. Maybe, but it's going to be, it's going to cost.
Right,
but you kind of know he's worth it. He's not a flash in the pan. He's quality, solid player, and has been for a number of years.
Right.
So, it would be a lot of money well spent, I think.
Well, then that makes their bench deeper, because then he's at second base, and you can move McCann. Keep saying that McNeil over to third. You got McNeil and Davis at third, Davis and Smith and whatchamacallit? Nimmo, thank you, in left, and then you got
right.
And you got
well, look, is that
Rosario and Jimenez at short. You got a deep bench.
Is that a terrible problem to have?
Not at all.
Can you ever, you know what I mean? Like, you can't say, oh, we can't have too many guys that can play left field. Even obviously who the number one guy is and who you want there. And to see Nimmo continue to develop, but it's not. Look, Davis is not really a left fielder. You said that. That's true.
Right.
But he can put him out there.
But for his bat, if everybody else needs a break or day off, or if Nimmo needs a day off at the same time, Alonso needs a day off at first, and you got to put Smith over on first,
right?
Then you throw JD out there.
And I think McNeil he's a more natural second baseman than third baseman, right?
McNeil's a more natural second baseman, yeah. So unless you're planning on moving LeMahieu over to third, which I think if you have the both of them, he's at second.
Yeah, he's at second, and he's maybe going to spell first base for Alonso.
Yeah,
and look, maybe or maybe you just DH him when you're playing interleague games, or maybe you DH Alonso, whatever.
Yeah, but
it's better to have more options than less.
And you know what? Going forward, though, if they do indeed not bring the DH into the National League this year, it's a foregone conclusion that in 2022 the DH is going to be in the National League. So you got to deal with a year of moving people around just to get their bat in the lineup, and then you don't have to worry about that. Then you got the DH,
Right.
So,
yeah, because I don't think it's going to happen this year, right?
I don't think it is. They said expect it not to. Who knows what Manfred's going to do? But because he pulls stuff out of the woodwork. At last minute anyway. But I think it's a foregone conclusion that by 2022, the DH is it's across the board. It's in the National League as well. So
great,
lovely. Take some of the it does take some of the game planning out and some of the strategy, but it also gives the Mets the advantage because they do have all those bats with only 9 positions on the field,
right?
So, or 8 technically because you're not talking about the pitcher. So, but so we'll see what happens.
And it gives some of those aging players a chance to continue to play. Which I don't really like. If you played Major League Baseball for 12 or 15 years or whatever,
Right.
you've probably done pretty well for yourself.
Pretty much.
You shouldn't really need to hang on for another 2 or 3 or 4 years as a DH.
No.
You should probably be able to ride off into the sunset and enjoy the millions and millions of dollars that you've made over your career.
Right.
Even if you're not one of the best players in the game, if you play for 15 years, you got some bucks.
You got some money. You got some money. You do. So, and a side note here, Mets were actually, James Paxton was having a workout this week. Mets were scouting him at it. So who knows what will come of that. But hey, you know what? It's another arm.
Yeah. And look, the question is, when are we really going to see the free agent market start to move?
Right.
I think it's going to be later rather than sooner. I think it's going to be later rather than sooner.
At this point, I don't think you're going to start to see. It's going to be at least the third week in January, I'd say, before stuff starts to like just blow up. It's going to be there'll be a signing next week, then there'll be 2 the week after, and then 3 or 4 the week after that, and then you get to the third week in January. Then I think things will pop up. But we'll see. Yeah, I think you're right though. Yeah, it's going to be later than I mean. Yeah, if it was earlier than later, it's never really middle ground. It's either really early and taken off, or it's later in the off season. And we're almost halfway through the off season now. So,
right, right.
But actually, we're just about halfway through the off season. Basically,
yeah,
assuming pitchers and catchers are actually going to report when they're supposed to report, and no lockdowns or anything like that. Then yeah, we're halfway through the off season. So
yeah, I think that's going to be the determining factor. Is if the vaccine rollout continues to go well, it seems like it's been going okay so far. Mm-hmm. And, we're looking at projections, and they will only be projections at that point, but we're looking at projections that maybe you're going to have whatever percentage, if you can get the seats 25% full or maybe half full stadiums, then I think you're going to see teams go, okay, we're going to have we're going to have that revenue now. Let's get on it. Let's get these players in here that we want. Until then, I think, why sign somebody if you don't know exactly what the future is going to be? If you don't have to, why sign somebody?
Exactly.
And take, a couple of teams making a couple of big signings, and then boom, everybody's going to kind of jump on.
Right, exactly. And where do the Mets fall into that, though? Because is Steve Cohen worried about that revenue coming in next year to make these signings, or does he want to get the players that he needs to get?
I think he's smart enough to understand that the longer it goes,
the less he has to pay.
The price is going to drop somewhat, and for some players, for others, as other teams, as the number of teams that want a particular player begins to shrink, then those other teams that are remaining, they might start be willing to pay a little bit more. Right. But I think he's considering that, probably the price is going to drop overall, generally speaking. And the key is finding the right point where you want to jump in, because he does want to get the guys that he wants to get.
Sure.
But he's shrewd enough to know that paying top dollar for them right now is not a necessity.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So we'll see how that all goes.
It's strange when you have like an owner who's smart about money and stuff.
What is that like?
It's hard.
We're gonna learn.
It's been what, a month now?
It's been a month.
It's only been a month, right?
It's only been a month
that we've had any inkling of what that's like.
What is that? Yeah. Crazy to think that we actually have that now.
Yeah.
Still, it's a Festivus miracle.
Yeah. And listen,
you know what though? If they didn't sell the team, we'd have a lot more grievances to air right now.
Yeah, that's true. And listen, the Mets, to me, the Mets are not as hard luck, certainly a story as like the Jets are.
No.
But it's been a while that their ownership has just sucked balls. And
one way to put it.
Just been unable to really, anything good that they've done in spite of intrepid management.
Right.
And incompetency. So I'm reluctant to start thinking positively because I'm worried about
you gotta
getting my heart broken again. Yeah, you don't want to rush. Right. Oh, we're going to be so good, and Cohen's going to spend, and we're going to win.
Right.
Yeah. Let's hold off on that. Let's see how it goes.
I didn't run out and get a new McCann jersey yet, so or anything like that. So. But yeah, no, I think you're right. It's been so long, and yeah, it's a Christmas miracle that this happened. But you know what? Merry Christmas to all of us. We have our new owner that we've wanted and
I believe
begged
in
for
Santa.
years. So
I believe in Santa again.
absolutely.
His name is Steve Cohen.
That fat man, Santa, not Steve Cohen.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's Santa's real name.
that's Santa's real name is Steve Cohen.
Yeah, it's not Chris Kringle.
Uncle Santa, Uncle Steve Cohen. There you go. But well, we'll see what happens. And you know what? I think on the other side of New York, I think the Yankees, you know, they should have got off the pot. Go sign LeMahieu. Come on. Cashman, if that's who you want, sit down with him and figure out what it's going to take and sign him.
Yeah,
Stop playing footsie. Stop letting him do this. Stop letting him do that. I mean, maybe he hasn't. Maybe he has a plan. Who knows? You know what? I just think if that's what you're waiting for, if you're waiting for that splash, figure it out. Get it done. Move on. Do something else. Whatever you got to do. You know.
Well, having no inside knowledge of this, I just tend to believe that that's probably where LeMahieu wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, though. You know, the Yankees can they have sort of a history of being able to, as you just put it, play footsie, right? They're sort of in control. But, you know, they haven't been so good lately.
Right.
And maybe they're, you know, like the Knicks, they're starting to lose some of that luster. Maybe they're not such a destination. Because, yeah, it's New York and they're the Yankees. But you only go to the Yankees because they win.
Sure.
And there's a winning culture. You know, whether it's because they spend a lot of money on big time free agents, or whether it's because they have this core that they bring up right through their farm system and that plays for, you know, more than a decade and they win 5 championships, or you know, whatever it is.
Right.
They haven't been that for a little while now.
No.
And that luster is not completely gone. But maybe there are some players out there who go, yeah, if the Yankees aren't going to win, why do I want to go there? Why do I want to face that pressure? Why do I want to be in that market? Right. Yeah, it's New York, but you go to the Yankees because of the winning culture. And if the winning culture is fading, then maybe it's not such a destination. And the Yankees don't get to kind of play like they have that upper hand.
Right.
So, you know, but I agree. Why would you not sign DJ LeMahieu?
Yeah.
He's not that old.
No, not at all.
And he's the best player on your
32,
team.
32, I think.
Yeah, he's the best player on your team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, how often do you have an equal amount of success when you let the best player on your team go? Mm-hmm. Unless you're spending massive amounts of money on other superstars to bring in to replace them. It's generally not a formula for success.
Right. No, it's not. It's not.
So I hope they let him go because I hate them. I hope they suck.
Well, yeah, like you said, there's not a lot going around. I mean, there's some rumors that the Cubs are going to trade Darvish to maybe the Padres.
That would be interesting.
They're looking to move obviously Bryant's out of there, but I mean, you know, there's a lot of question marks. You know, where is everybody going to wind up? So I think we're right. I think we both are in lockstep there that it's going to be later than sooner. Yeah,
there's a lot of inactivity right now.
Yeah,
and I think when that changes, there's going to be a short period of a little trickle, and then it's just going to be a flood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when some bad deals are going to get made.
Then there'll be a couple bad deals.
And that's where you hope that the Mets are not part of that. And that's where the Yankees may end up overpaying because they're watching guys that they have their eye on disappear.
Right.
Because those players aren't holding out, hoping that the Yankees make an offer. They're going somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we'll see. So, and the NHL is going to start up in January. So, we'll talk.
And so we'll talk about them when the playoffs start.
We'll talk about them when the playoffs start.
We'll talk about them in June when the playoffs.
We'll talk a little here and a little there, but yeah, we'll do that then. But yeah, well, we'll see what happens. On that note, you have any? We talked about on the before we sign off here. We talked about on the beer podcast our top 3 favorite holiday movies. And I was just sorry we couldn't do this before Harry had to leave. I gave mine. Mine were my number 3 was Trading Places. It's a Christmas movie. And my number 2 was Christmas Vacation, and my number 1 was A Christmas Story. You'll shoot your eye out.
Yeah.
So what would your 3 be?
I I think those are all good choices. I don't know if there's a single movie that I would consider appointment TV.
Gotcha.
In that, I mean, nothing is really appointment because you can always catch anything anytime
Whenever you want. Yeah.
But
TV.
I mean, certainly they do the marathon of A Christmas Story.
Sure.
And I'll watch 20 minutes of the movie probably
17
8 or 9 times during that 24 hours.
As long as I catch Fragile.
Yeah,
Must be Italian.
I'll probably see the whole movie over the course of the marathon. Not in order, but I'll see every section of it in a different,
at some point,
half hour.
You'll see the movie in its entirety, probably twice, but never all in.
From beginning to
end. Yeah.
But I don't know. I watch. Other than and this is the unusual thing for me about live television,
right?
Is that other than sports, I don't watch much live television.
Okay.
I stream stuff.
Sure.
And not live.
Sure.
So, I mean, there are times when I'll put on the...
So you have to actually want to watch a specific movie to have it be something that you go to and stream.
Yeah.
So be it a holiday movie, you might not be picking that all the time. So therefore...
Yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing that I would feel like, oh, I got to put this on because it's Christmas and I want to watch it again.
Right.
I guess I'm just a little more blasé about it. But, again, any of those movies you mentioned, Die Hard...
Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie.
Absolutely.
Any one of those, if I'm flipping through, and that's the thing, I don't really flip through very much. Mm-hmm. But I do have a list. One of my categories is movie channels.
Right.
And I could sort of open that up, and there's maybe 20 different movie channels, and I'll sort of look through the guide there and go, oh, that's good, and pop something on for 20 minutes. But
sure.
Any one of those movies would be something that I would stop and watch for a little while if I were flipping through the channels.
There you go.
But yeah, I guess probably Christmas Story would be if I had to. They said, well, you have to watch a Christmas movie. It might be Christmas Story. Or listen, who knows? I might watch one of the animated specials because I haven't really seen them in years.
Rudolph or Frosty.
Yeah, I see the postings on Facebook. Oh, the Rudolph's on tonight. And it's appointment TV for something. And I'm like, whatever. It's good. It's fine, but I've seen it 800 times.
We mentioned that back in the day, like when we were all kids. If you were watching Rudolph,
it was.
If you missed it, you missed it till next year.
You missed it, right?
That's it.
So that's not the case. So I don't really feel a sense of urgency. And I would say there's nothing that I would say. Well, it's Christmas Eve. The presents are wrapped. Everything's kind of wrapped up, and I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, and I'm going to put on my favorite Christmas movie. There's no tradition like that in this household.
Gotcha.
And there's nothing that I would say, I think it's time for me to watch my annual, the annual viewing of movie X. Just doesn't. I'm too blasé for that sort of thing.
We favorite Christmas song? Yeah, one. What do you think? One. He's thinking the wheels are turning.
I don't know. I'm kind of locked in. Every year we get the boys to go on. We usually go on Facebook Live and they play a couple of songs.
Right.
But my oldest in rebellion was looking for the worst Christmas song.
The worst Christmas song.
And he's like, "What's the worst ones?" I've been thinking about that. We came up with McCartney, "Wonderful Christmas Time."
There you go.
We think it's pretty much the worst Christmas song, but he was. So that's sort of been in my head. All I can think of is
the worst Christmas song by one of the best artists of.
Yeah, exactly.
From one of the best artists. Mine, I can give you two. Mine are my traditional one that's been done over and over, and like true, like solid Christmas song, if you will. It's "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." That's my favorite. But my whimsical favorite Christmas song by far is "Dominic the Donkey."
Oh, I hate that.
Most people do hate it, but I love it.
Here's the thing: when I first got into radio and I worked out in Riverhead, and I was the fill-in guy and did weekends, and
Right.
I worked the 8-hour shift on Christmas because I was the new guy.
Sure.
And so over the course of those 8 hours, I probably had to listen to Dominic the Donkey 5 times.
Sure, of course.
And that was all it took to
That's it.
ruin it forever for me. So
it's a family thing going back for me. My mother, my grandfather, everybody like to love the song. So I grew up loving that song, like
Yeah.
whimsical kind of.
I'll say this: there's two kind of old school. Silver Bells,
Sure.
is one that I enjoy.
Very good song.
And as of a couple of years ago, I actually listened to The Little Drummer Boy and thought about the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not a religious person.
Sure.
But just the idea of this, waif, this orphan,
Mm-hmm.
traveling, stumbling upon, the birth of our Lord and Savior,
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't have frankincense, doesn't have myrrh, doesn't have anything to give to the Son of God. And I got a drum, so he plays his drum,
Mm-hmm.
and then the baby, and then he smiled at me,
Mm-hmm.
It kind of made me look at that song a little differently and look at it.
Warmed your heart up a little bit.
Yeah, it really did. It was kind of, and being a drummer myself, I guess maybe that had something to do with it.
Absolutely.
But I just kind of started to look at that song a little bit differently, because otherwise you look at it and you go, yeah, that's what every infant wants to hear.
Right.
Is a drum solo.
Don't think that was quite the message, but
2 hours out of the womb, that's what every infant child wants to hear is,
Right.
so that song kind of took on a little bit of a special meaning for me.
And the Bing Crosby, David Bowie version.
I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Loved it the first 2-3 times I heard it. After that, nah.
Gotcha.
Pass.
There's some other versions actually did the exact same thing. It was a cover of the Bing Crosby David Bowie version of.
Oh, jeez.
You know what I mean? So they did the same way. But anyway.
Yeah, it was kind of cute. But if you watch enough times, you're like, I don't really think these guys got together and they were best buddies after that.
Hey,
they were put together and they performed what they were supposed to perform, and then I think they went
there you go. It was for the
separate
TV
ways
special,
and never spoke to each other again. That's.
So, but yeah, so
yeah, Silver Bells and Little Drummer Boy.
Silver Bells, Little Drummer Boy. There you go. All right. Well, that's an interesting combination. But yeah, there's been a lot of there it is. There's been a lot of chatter about it back and forth between the craft beer show and this one. So I just wanted to get that out there and have a little fun with that. And we did Feats of Strength too on the craft beer show.
Oh, nice.
So I didn't. Dave actually poured 3 beers into a big liter stein. That was his feat of strength. But it was
which is also going to be his feat of endurance when he drinks all
his
of it.
feat of endurance when he drinks. Yeah, by now he said I doubt he's still watching this show. So,
well, he might be. Well,
he
one
might
eye
be.
might still be open.
We'll find out. So, but yeah, no, I just wanted to bring that out. So that was good. But just so everybody knows, starting next week, the craft beer podcast will be moved to Tuesday nights, giving us more time to prep and maybe start a little earlier if we need to, and whatever else we have to do for the sports podcast, which will remain at the same time ish on Wednesday nights. So you can look forward to that. So
yeah. Always a little caveat, ish.
Always
start
ish.
on time-ish.
Well, you know what? It's going to be less ish now with the beer one moving to Tuesdays. Because there won't be any overlap, there won't be any pushback or anything like that. So if we say we're starting at 7, we're starting at 7. The ish I mean is that maybe we can move it to 6:30 if we need to, or anything like that, depending on, of course, Harry, since he is 2 hours ahead of us. So he might not be available at 4:30.
Yeah, so we could move it even and move it an hour up or whatever.
Yeah, we'll figure it all out
depending on our schedule, if we get all our schedules lined up. But
exactly. So all right. Well, that should wrap up the show for today. We want to thank everybody for watching. And for those of you listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit our website, www.lageroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Lager Room. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And for those of you that just want to listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you will never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a wonderful rest of your Festivus day. Have a great Christmas Eve. Have a very Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful weekend. Watch a lot of football. Keep watching that basketball. And we'll talk about a lot of stuff next week. Have a wonderful time, and we will talk to you all soon, folks. Take care.
Peace, everybody.